The African Indigenous Knowledge Research Network is an association of like-minded scholars, intellectuals all across the African continent.
Yes, kudos to many schools that are trying to infuse these things, and that's part of why we're here. To see how Nigerian is our curriculum. How much are we bringing the children close to their environment? How are we linking what they're learning in the classroom to their immediate environment? How much cultural value are we adding to those things, or are they learning fairy tales instead of our folk tales?
The African Indigenous Knowledge Research Network, that's AIKRN, that is the association that we actually belong in, has taken upon itself and started with the responsibility of ensuring that indigenous knowledge is incorporated into the nitty-gritty of our educational curriculum.
We discovered that we are following the templates that have been given to us by the colonial master.
The way we raise our children, it seems as though we are trying to make them foreigners.
Education and culture, they are like two sides of a coin.
We need to find a way of re-energizing society, repleting home with indigenous knowledge so that we can bring up children that are actually worth the learning.
The point is not to teach children on a system that was, or curricular system that was developed elsewhere, outside of the continent, but to give, the children who are growing up, who are learning in school, hands-on experience, not only the knowledge of their culture, but also hands-on experience that derive from those cultures. Professor Additional Afolayan. I'm from the Department of Philosophy, University of Ibadan. I'm also the coordinator of the Ibadan team of the African Indigenous Knowledge Research Network. The African Indigenous Knowledge Research Network is an association of like-minded scholars, intellectuals all across the African continent. Our objective is, on the one hand, to see to the rescuing, the exploitation and exploration of African indigenous knowledge system that has been set aside and has been denigrated by colonialism. So our aim is to see how this system that has been the foundation of so many scholars, of so many cultures, African culture for many centuries, many millennia, to see how they can be rescued and how they can be deployed as the basis of sustainable development on the African continent. Today we are looking at how we can infuse, as part of our larger objectives, we are looking at how we can infuse the teaching of African indigenous knowledge system into both the curriculum and extracurriculum activity of the preschool, of primary school and of secondary school education curriculum. And that is essentially because we think that if the children are not, the values of African indigenous knowledge system are not inculcated in the children, then the effort to achieve an entrepreneurial mindset for the African youth is going to be defeated. The point is not to teach children on the system that was, or curricular system that was developed elsewhere, outside of the continent, but to give, the children who are growing up, who are learning in school, hands-on experience, not only the knowledge of their culture, but also hands-on experience that derive from those cultures, that makes them independent individuals who haven't learned in school, can also deploy the knowledge, vocational knowledge, outside of the school when they graduate. So that is the essence of today. We are gathering people together. We are gathering scholars, teachers, classroom teachers, administrators from the educational sector, owners of private school, professors of curriculum development. We're putting all of these people together to brainstorm on how that kind of infusion that kind of incorporation can be achieved.
My name is Dr. Oluwabumibakari Fatungashe. I'm from the Department of Information Management, Library and Information Science Program, Exquisite University, Ibadan. The African Indigenous Knowledge Research Network, that's AIKRN, that is the association that we actually belong in, has taken it upon itself and been saddled with the responsibility of ensuring that indigenous knowledge is incorporated into the nitty-gritty of our educational curriculum, knowing fully well that westernization has one way or the other having a negative effect on our children, and at the long run we can see that our cultures in Africa, in Nigeria, is being eroded. So that is why the African Indigenous Knowledge Research Network in Ibadan has taken it upon ourselves, ably led by Professor Adesina Afolayan, to bring to bear the theme incorporating African Indigenous Knowledge System into preschool, primary, secondary and educational curriculum, so that we can have a feel of what stakeholders think that, okay, when it comes to indigenous knowledge infusion into our curriculum, where are we coming from, where we are and where we are going in the future, so that it can have a positive effect on our children, so that it can ensure the sustainability of the African culture. You are expecting crossbreed of stakeholders. We have stakeholders from the university, we have from governments that forms policy, and we have from teachers that are actually working in schools and teaching those children, and also we have the AIKRN panelists that cut across different universities in Ibadan too, and I'm believing that we are going to have an intellectually rewarding time learning from those people, because we are having professors, we have enough professors, we have VC of university coming around, and it's going to be really enriching. Yeah.
I am Oluyemisi Idowu Majebi from the Department of Early Childhood and Educational Foundation, Faculty of Education, University of Ibadan. The program is just to raise a voice, a professional voice for the educational system in Nigeria. It's just about decolonization of our educational system. We discovered that we are following the templates that have been given to us by the colonial master, and it's not getting us anywhere. Education is all about culture. Education and culture, they are like two sides of a coin. When you separate culture from education, you cannot get any meaningful learning. So we're here, and it's been established from literature that culture is supposed to start within. You make people to learn about their own culture before you introduce them to the culture of the outside world, and that is how teaching and learning can be meaningful. So we want to see we want to discuss. We have professionals there, we have people from the university, we have people that are practitioners. We want to deliberate on the meaningful way of bringing our culture into our educational system to be able to have meaningful teaching and learning practices.
My name is Olanike Onimisi from the Department of Theatre at University of Ibadan, an AIKRN member. It's a very laudable initiative by the AIKRN Ibadan team that I belong to, because the purpose of this is to see how we can indigenize, things within our culture. We can indigenize education, entrepreneurships, and that's one of the core values of the AIKRN. And this particular workshop is, bringing together analysts from different aspects of the academia, from the Ministry of Education, even classroom teachers, proprietresses, headmistresses, bringing them together to discuss what are the issues that we're having, in implementing indigenous, incorporating indigenous values in our education, because we already know that education has already been modernized. It's not the way it used to be during the African traditional education system, where people learned experientially. There was hands-on learning. If you want to learn how to swim, you have to go to the river. You want to learn agriculture, you go to the farm. You want to learn hunting, you go into the wild. And you want to learn anything, tailoring. Even when we started to have more modernized vocations like tailoring, welding, as technology, came in, you still had to go to the field. You needed to learn, in practice. But now most schools run on on textbooks. Most schools are even so enclosed that they don't even have that natural setting to be able to allow the students or the pupils in primary school now to explore, with nature. And so they have to, even for those who incorporate these things, they have to bring those things from home or bring them from their from wherever, just to bring it to the schools, because most times now, I was saying the other day that most schools now have interlocks instead of having the soil that the students can relate with. Big pebbles to learn counting in the classrooms, not necessarily always chalk and talk. The teacher just uses the board. Yes, kudos to many schools that are trying to infuse these things, and that's part of why we're here, to see how Nigerian is our curriculum. How much are we bringing the children close to their environment? How are we linking what they're learning in the classroom to their immediate environment? How much cultural value are we adding to those things? Or are they learning fairy tales instead of our folk tales? Are they learning by incorporating stories from the West? Or we bring our own original stories, indigenous to us, peculiar to us? For instance, in the Southwest, there are so many stories, so many artifacts that are peculiar to us. Are the schools in the Southwest infusing those things in the learning in the classroom, so that when the students step out of the classroom, it's not as if they've left a foreign place back home? There's a link between the school and the home. And when they go out, they can talk about their own thing. I'm not talking about Western things, when even the Westerners want to know more about us. So I think these and many more is why we are here, to look at the national policy on education. What is it asking? How indigenous are all the things that have been set in the principles and the goals, and then finally to look at the RTC to see how much Nigerian is our curriculum, especially in the preschool, primary and secondary school levels.
Ms. Tunde Adibola, I'm the Executive Director of African Languages Technology Initiative. Well, basically the idea is to bring people together to develop the curriculum for a strategy for infusing indigenous knowledge in the training of teaching of primary and secondary school children. Because the way we raise our children, it seems as though we are trying to make them foreigners, whereas that will not make them relevant to the environment and will not make the environment relevant to them. They may not be able to operate effectively in that environment if they do not have knowledge of the environment. So all the trainings, all the teachings, all the efforts we are making to raise them, if it is based on foreign knowledge, then they are not effective. We will not be doing justice to them. The government has to be a lot more proactive about this, because that is the area of government. The objective of government is to galvanize common attitudes. That's what government does. Because we may have different opinions, but government helps to bring all this together so that there can be synergy. So from government, we then go to the home. Now, one of the most important takeaways from the first session is that there's a lot that needs to happen in the home, and somebody even points out that there isn't much at home. So we need to find a way of re-energizing society, repleting home with indigenous knowledge, so that we can bring up children that are actually worthwhile.
I wish we could expose it to more people. You need to bring parents in, not just educators. I was so glad when I saw that in the National Education Policy, they're very keen on engaging communities as well. I'm an advocate for Latin question road day. It is important. And I was just talking to some of the participants that, look, no matter how much Yoruba we speak to the children in the school, there has to be continuity in the home.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
they spend a lot of time at home. So if you teach them, it's like a lot of parents want their children to learn French. Okay, we teach them to French at school. By the time you get home and you meet parents that are not French speaking, those children don't learn quickly. It's the same as Yoruba. So you must find a way to engage the home. Like one of the participants said that we're in trouble because even parents of our generation more they saw it in Yoruba. So they asked me here, Papa, so what is the problem? It's very simple. Actually, they are caregivers. Mama, kẹ make sure pé àwọn ni wọ́n ń tọ́jú ọmọ yín. Àwọn màmá tí ò lè sọ hello
Wọ́n lè sọ
kọ́
tápà.
àwọn ọmọ yín ní Yorùbá yẹn. It is very important. We must let parents know the importance of this our language Yoruba. And somebody said it's our Yoruba language problem. Àwa la fẹ́ sọ Gẹ̀ẹ́sì ju àwọn kún yín. Gbogbo àwọn ọ̀rẹ́ mi tó jẹ́ Igbo, àwọn ọmọ láti kékeré ni wọ́n ti ń sọ Igbo. Gbogbo àwọn tí mo mọ̀ tó jẹ́ Hausa ni wọ́n ti ń sọ àwa nìkan la máa fẹ́ sọ Igbo. Àdètí gbóyìnbó náà dáadáa. Our teacher wa máa pe blue ni blue. So even teachers, I think honestly we're placing too much hope in the education sector. Because how many teachers really know in Yoruba in Mogunreke? You know what I mean? So we're facing a devil and deep blue sea situation, and it's something that I'm happy that we have a roundtable, and they've assured me here that the next roundtable we're going to have is how to bring this revolution to the home.
Yes,
Very important.
Thank you so much.
Professor Duru Adeleke. Now, this thing is focusing on development of a particular people, and for those people to tap into their resources. They should bring in the Indian curriculum and merge it with the Western curriculum, because by the time Providence created us into a particular environment, all resources around are meant to be utilized for our development, sustainability, and development.
Thank you very much, everybody. Can we have our seats? It's my delight. The event is part of the wider objective of the African Indigenous Knowledge Research Network. This is an association of custodians of indigenous knowledge all across the continent of Africa. And our aim is to combat and to act the African indigenous knowledge system that has been denigrated for so many years, especially commencing with the colonization process in Africa. And education plays a very significant role in undermining our belief, undermining. With the help of the African Indigenous Knowledge Research Network, we are involved in not only rescuing our indigenous Africa. This one is organized by the Ibadan team. We have about 3 or so. We have our Baba, our Egmont, who has been leading at so many fronts, on so many levels, the efforts to bring back the knowledge of the indigenous knowledge system, especially the Yoruba worldview, cultural worldview. I'm talking about Dr. Tunde Adegbola. Tunde Adegbola is going to be our keynote speaker for today. I'm very sure that we're going to be having a lot to chew on, you know, with, I have no idea what he's going to talk about, but I'm very, very certain that we're going to have a lot that will form a part of our discussion today. We also have here, I call him Bahame, Professor Duro Adeleke. Professor Duro Adeleke, he used to be at the Department of African Linguistics and African Languages at the University of Ibadan. He is now a member of the Faculty of Humanities at the AIKRN University. Please a round of applause for We also have Professor C.O. Kolawole, who is the VC of Trinity University, Lagos, and a professor of English and curriculum instruction. Unfortunately, because he is a VC of a university, he is not able to be here with us today. But he has sent somebody to represent him, and we have with us Dr. Samuel Kolawole Babalola. Welcome, Dr. Babalola. We are very pleased to have you. We also have on the panel of discussants today Professor Esther Oju Olowu. She's on her way, she will soon join us. We have Professor Kola Babanide, who is also here, fully dead in our indigenous attire. We are pleased to have you here, sir. Welcome, sir. Professor Shola Oloriyomi is the director of the Institute of African Study, but he's not able to, I think he's going to join us later. There are so many programs that are going on in the Institute at the moment, and he needs to be a part of some of them. We have Mr. Aliu Adebiji, is the Director of Education, Oyo State University of Education. We are pleased to have you here, sir. Welcome, sir. We have Mrs. Oyindamola Ige, proprietress, the Nest Montessori School and the Bridge International School in Ibadan. I've heard a lot about your passion for our indigenous folklore, you know, and I'm very sure that we are going to learn a lot from you today.
Thank you.
You are welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
We also have Mrs. Titilayo O.A. Oladejo. Mrs. Titilayo Oladejo is the teacher at St. David's Anglican School, Kudet. Now we are pleased to have you. I know you've been a teacher for many years. I've also heard a lot about you. I believe that we are going to learn a lot from your on-the-spot teaching experience that you are going to share with us today. Welcome. We have Mr. Kinwumi Ogedengbe, the co-founder and teacher at the Graceful Private School. Graceful Private School. Welcome, sir. Welcome, sir. I know between you and Mrs. Ige, you are going to learn a lot, especially coming from the private sector. Thank you.
But quite some things have shifted since education became modernized. In African traditional education, we know that learning was hands-on, experiential. I mean, like I was saying to Mr. Fasilashi, if a child needs to learn how to swim, the child will go to the river. If a child needs to learn agriculture, the child will go to the farm. If a child needs to learn, I mean, there are so many ways that we learned back then that has shifted a bit in how children learn now, especially now that schooling is the thing. We're now enclosed in the four walls of classrooms. Some schools have their, where we should have natural soils, we have interlocks, so the children don't really have access to nature as it were, as close as soil, you know, can be. A lot of subjects have been introduced into the curriculum, and how they are being taught then begs the question, how much are the children learning from preschool to primary and to the secondary school? Because I believe that in the West that brought education to us, once they are done with high school, some of them just go get jobs. Because while they're in school, they're learning skills to, you know, to make them mature citizens that can, cater for themselves, that can be responsible for the community, and that is what they do. But here, after secondary school, we all push for the university. Now, what are those skills that have been learned in the basic education that can equip students or pupils to continue, even when they enter the university? They can become entrepreneurs by the things that they've learned in the classrooms, now that we are dealing more with formal education. So how indigenous or how Nigerian is our curriculum? How much indigenous practice do we bring into education? And I'm going to open the National Policy on Education, which is going to be like the framework. It tells us what is the goal of education in Nigeria. I mean, it's saddening that sometimes children they go through school here, and then when they go abroad, and they encounter Americans or Chinese or British children, and they're exchanging ideas, and they don't have so much to say about home. And learning is supposed to create that link between what is going on in the classroom and their immediate environment, so that they can talk about it proudly, talk about their culture, have that cultural identity through education. Because education is through life. Even people learn by observation. What do we expose them to? And a lot of things have changed, even in communal living as it used to be. Now everybody is enclosed, living in high-fenced walls. What are they exposed to? What are they encountering on a daily basis that adds to what they learn in the classroom? Now, when they don't have that exposure, what are schools doing to give them that exposure to their own cultures that would ground them in their own cultural identities? So here is the Nigerian policy, the National Policy on Education, established by the federal government of Nigeria. And I'll quickly go to the goals. There are philosophies, of education, but we're going to the goals because those goals are what we're trying to establish in the schools. Please pardon me. So I'll quickly touch on this. The overall policy of the nation includes, let me zoom in on that. Okay, so policy, if we look at item 2, it says the overall policy of the nation includes, but not limited to, A, live in unity and harmony as one indivisible, indissoluble, democratic and sovereign nation founded on the principles of freedom, equality and justice. And B, promote inter-African solidarity and world peace through understanding. Nigeria's philosophy of education is based on the following set of beliefs. A, education is an instrument for national development and social change. B, education is vital for the promotion of a progressive and united Nigeria. C, education maximizes the creative potentials and skills of the individual for self-fulfillment and general development of the society. When we talk of society here, we're talking of Nigeria, not Europe, not America, not Canada, not China, Nigeria. So how Nigerian are the things they learn in the classroom, are the things that they encounter in the homes. Because the home and the school are supposed to be one unit. So everything they learn from school, they go back home and then back and forth, and there's no difference. D, education is compulsory and the right of every Nigerian, irrespective of gender, social status, religion, color, ethnic background, and any peculiar individual challenges. E, education is to be qualitative, comprehensive, functional, and relevant to the needs of the society. So I'm just going to skip to the goals of education in Nigeria because of our time. A, development of the individual into a morally sound, patriotic, and effective citizen. B, total integration of the individual into the immediate community the Nigerian society, and the world. C, provision of equal access to qualitative educational opportunities for all citizens at all levels of education, within and outside the formal school system. D, inculcation of national consciousness, values, and national unity. And E, development of appropriate skills, mental, physical, and social abilities, and competencies to empower the individual to live in and contribute positively to the society. The specific goals of Nigeria are A, to ensure and sustain unfettered access and equity to education for the total development of the individual. B, to ensure the quality of education delivery at all levels. This the federal government put in place. C, to promote functional education for skill acquisition, job creation, and poverty reduction. D, ensure periodic review, effectiveness, and relevance of the curriculum at all levels to meet the needs of society and the world of work. E, to collaborate with development partners, the private sector, non-governmental organizations, and local communities to support and fund education. And F, to promote information technology capability at all levels. I'll take this last one and then we can go on with the agenda. 8. In order to fully realize the goals of education in Nigeria and gain from its contribution to the national economy, government shall take necessary measures to ensure that A, educational activities shall be learner-centered for maximum self-development and self-fulfillment. B, teaching shall be practical, activity-based, experiential, and IT supported. We're in the digital age, so that cannot be pushed aside. C, education shall be related to all overall community needs. That's part of the functionality. And D, all tiers of government shall promote the establishment and support of reading clubs in schools, community libraries, and other such resources that would enhance effective learning. E, special provisions and incentives shall be made for the study of the sciences at each level of the education system. F, continuing education shall be part and parcel of the education system. And G, every child shall be taught in the mother tongue or language of the immediate community for the first 4 years of basic education. In addition, it is expected that every child shall learn one Nigerian language. I encountered a child who told me that they teach them Yoruba with English. And according to the laid down, the guidelines, up until basic 4, the language of instruction should be the indigenous language, but that is not practiced anymore. So that is part of what we want to discuss, having stakeholders here, having teachers here, having proprietors and school founders here, to discuss where are we, what can be done, because change starts with us. It starts from where we are. We can't go and influence something somewhere else. We start from right where we are. So how can we start from here and then begin to expand the way that is part of what we are here to discuss. And then as we go along, we can look at subjects that have been infused into the curriculum. How effective are they? How relevant are they? And regardless of their relevance due to global need, how indigenous are they? Thank you.
We are hoping maybe before we go on, we can just quickly look at a video that just a very short one that seeks to summarize what is considered to be the state of education on the continent or in Nigeria today.
Self-reliance. They have outdoor stoves proportionate to vegetables to cooking. Even line up. They have outdoor stoves proportionate to their height, and they make their own meals every day, from washing and chopping vegetables to cooking. They eat their own cooked meals with such gusto you'd think they're licking the plates clean. After eating, they voluntarily clean up and even line up to wash dishes. The principal assigns tasks based on the kids' interests to foster their hands-on skills. They start working right after meals, making baskets or knitting scarves for themselves, and even using sewing machines to make clothes. They embroider, weave mats, and even make their beds. They're taught independence from a young age. The older kids can cook a meal from scratch, and the younger ones are adept at kneading dough and making pancakes, making chefs jealous. They even squeeze their own milk and make juice from scratch. From washing and cutting fruit to the final product, they do it all themselves, with teachers offering guidance. After eating and drinking, they get busy with various activities like embroidery, building walls with mud, making puzzles, drawing, and making decorations. The girls can even practice makeup and hairstyling, becoming professional hairstylists upon graduation. They never skip school because there's just too much to do. Some netizens say this is real hands-on education, unlike other kindergartens where teachers worry about kids getting hurt. Here, they face challenges head-on, with special forces-style training, jumping rope while playing basketball, climbing ropes, and building giant Ferris wheels. They learn to ride balance bikes and practice martial arts. There's no crying when dropping kids off. They run straight to class. Fighting over toys? Non-existent. Everyone's too busy with their own tasks to bother with that. This is what childhood memories should be like. If it were your child, would you choose this kind of kindergarten?
There is another video, I don't know, maybe there's so many of us that saw it, where this kind of activity-based learning was depicted on the one hand, and on the other hand, what seems to obtain in the Nigerian schooling system was also depicted, where the teacher was, jumping and, trying to get the student, the pupils, to learn words, to learn English words. Welcome, man. We have Professor Odolu. Please a round of applause for her. You're welcome, man. So it's my pleasure to, I'm hoping that with the keynote from Professor Tunde Adebola, we will have a lot to chew before we go into our deliberation and discussion. We will have a whole lot to chew, both from the agenda setting and from the keynotes. So it is my pleasure to welcome Professor Tunde Adebola, who is the Director of the African Languages Technology, to share a bit of some of the things that he's been able to do with the African Indigenous Knowledge system. I read your short piece recently about "Issue is not Satan." Thank you for.
I do not take it for granted. I count it as a privilege and honor. I try my best not to. I will try my best to excite you. By excite, I mean in Yoruba, the word for think is roll in, stir up your within, so that things probably that have settled and you have not encountered in some time will kind of float up, and you then see that, okay, this is there also, so that you can take account of it. And what I want to try to do this morning is just place certain issues before you, and hopefully they will cause you to stir your within, so that some of the things that are probably settled as a matter of density, they've gone to the bottom, and the things that you see at the top, which may not be as important, will then give way to some of those things that we need. consider very critically. Being a structuralist, I have this habit of always breaking down things. And that's the best way I'm able to understand and able to relate with people. So when I look at the idea of indigenous knowledge, and I'm impelled to try to break it down, look at what do we mean by indigenous, what do we mean by knowledge, and knowing that when we break down situations, if we do not bring them back to the whole, we may lose some of the essence because the summation of the parts will not necessarily be equal to the whole because there will be synergies involved. So when I look at the word indigenous, I see ideas of things originating or occurring naturally in a particular place, in a particular location that may bring about words like native, natural. It talks of people who inhabit, who are existing in a land from the earliest times, particularly maybe before the arrival of colonists who, in Yoruba, would say, people who come to contend your material resources with you. And in looking at indigenous, I like to look at the word local. Local means relating or restricted to a particular area or neighborhood. Of, relating to, or characteristic of a particular place. It's not general. It may not be widespread, but it is related to a particular locality. It is applicable only to certain parts of the whole. And I'm taking time to explain this word local because there are certain connotations, Nigerian connotations I must say, that come with the word local. And when you say local, people tend to impute some kind of negative coloration to it. But local is what I have just explained. And whenever I say local, that is the sense in which I'm using the word local, beyond the local connotations. Speaking particularly about appropriateness. So that's my idea of indigenous. Local, talking to appropriateness. So what about knowledge? Knowledge has to do with facts, information, skills that are acquired through experience, proper training. Knowledge is about the awareness of familiarity gained by experience, either of a fact or of a situation. But particularly, knowledge is the theoretical or practical understanding of a subject. And I put a lot of emphasis on that because understanding now goes beyond a lot of the earlier two we talked about. Understanding in this sense, from my information, derive the unavailable information from the available information. It has wings. It has feathers. It walks on two. It has a beak. That is the information that is available to you. And based on that information, you classify it as a bird. And because you have classified it as a bird, you derive the information that if you chase it, it will fly. If you pay for it and you feed it, it will lay eggs, and you can sell the eggs. So that day-old chick that you put money on has never laid eggs in its life. But you are able to derive the unavailable information that it will lay eggs from the available information that it has a beak, it has a wing, it walks on two, it has feathers. So that is the essence of understanding, that you are able to derive the unavailable information. It's all about getting relevant information to to make informed decisions in order to be able to take appropriate actions. And these are, they are perennial. We are always making decisions and taking actions. That's why we are here today. We all took decisions to live where we are, and we took the action to put ourselves here because it's important, because we have information that supported it. Now, we've talked about indigenous, we've talked about knowledge. When we now look at indigenous knowledge as a whole, we now see that we now have a phraseology that has taken a life of its own beyond the breaking down of indigenous and knowledge. So indigenous knowledge speaks to traditional or local knowledge. Remember my talk about knowledge, local, passed down from generation to generation within a given community. It is the traditional or local knowledge of the local environment that is passed down from generation to generation within a given community. What you have in another community may be different because the environment is different. So it has to be within that community, and that speaks a lot to what we're trying to do here today. Origin, usually passed by origin, but later it may be written if the community has developed a written tradition. It evolves from everyday experience in response to both the natural and the built environment. It is most suited for that environment, thereby creating and enhancing an ecosystem. We now live within an ecosystem in which you and the system are working together in consonance. It sometimes trumps modernity, and embarrassingly so. That's indigenous knowledge. Sometimes you encounter modernity, and because of the novelty of it, you are excited, but you run away with it. But when indigenous knowledge comes, you now see that, wow, the fact that these people have lived with this environment for such a time, and they have evolved this knowledge, it is much more suited to that environment. So, two words that are important from where we are coming from now are relevance and appropriateness. They are the issues in locality and indigeneity. When we're talking about locality, we're talking about indigeneity, we must be looking at those two ideas of relevance and appropriateness. We should be looking at going from a general to the specific. Because there are general things, there are issues that are common to all humanity. We need to observe that. But then we go from the general to the particulars, because the particulars are important. The average Nigerian will say, I don't even know how these Chinese, they all look alike. I wonder how they recognize their wives. You are going from the general, slit eyes, small stature, that is what you see, because you don't see them all the time. But the man does not see that. He sees the particular slit and the angle of his own wife's eye. So he's gone to the particular. So there's that need to go from the general to the particular. Our home fashion could be taboo in other places. The man from Ada, who has chosen to be close friends with an Undo man, their friendship will hit a solid rock one day. Because Ada people can't stand dogs. They favor and savor Okete. Cannot handle Okete, they savor dog. So the Ada man that is making deep friendship with Egin, the day that his wife borrows cooking pot from Ogi, and the Egin wife says, hey, let me quickly remove the dog steam in the pot and get it and send it to you. That is the end of that friendship. So these are talking about the particularities in human existence, in human reality. And if we don't take account of this, we'll always run into brick walls. Now talk about preschool, primary school, and secondary curricula. The question we must ask ourselves at this stage is this education for enculturation or acculturation? So are we bringing up our children as ours, or are we bringing up children that we can say, you know, and take pride in that? If the education is for enculturation, then we have to look into our past. We have to look into our circumstances. We have to look into how our forebears enculturated those that bore us. Let me give some examples from Yoruba. One of the ways by which the Yoruba enculturate their children is by the use of alo. There's alo apam, there's alo apam. Alo tells, alo apagbe tells tales, presents facts. Alo apamo presents riddles to drill those facts so that children remember them. Now, alo is a noun derived from the verb law, which means to convolve, to twine, to ply. Because we want to teach certain morals, we want to teach certain values, we tell a story that we convolve with those necessary values. And in the process, we present these values to children. And it is interesting that we hardly tell those stories of human beings, because we find some of the negative behaviors so despicable, we don't even want to attribute them to human beings. We're always telling them about animals, particularly the notorious tortoise, because we do not even want our children to accept that it's possible for human beings to do so. Take that away from them. So that is one way by which we enculturate our children. Then owe. Just like a law is from law, in the same way is away from way. And if you don't look carefully, you will say, oh, no, it is away. The one with which we wrap it, the one with which we compare it, the one with which we explain it. In some Yoruba dialects, way means to explain. You're awakening for me. I remember that because I was born in Shagamu, and I grew up in Shagamu, and I was brought to Ibadan, to primary 2 or 3, and I saw some tests, and 2 students were telling each other, and we were taught to tell them off. So I called the teacher, excuse me, and the teacher and all the class burst into laughter because of my Igbo dialect. And I was so disappointed. I was helping the teacher and she was laughing at me. And that, so way in particularly in the Igbo dialect means to explain. So we see there, way is that with which it is wrapped, that with which it is compared, that with which it is explained. Another way by which we enculturate our children, and well, if I leave away, it's leave the way talking about wrap. Is it a coincidence that both leaves and paper are waywards? Away, both of them flat that we can wrap with. So we see the essence of the way there. The wrapping, the story was told of the person who put a sign, a post on WhatsApp. Mr. So and so. I bought body this afternoon, and when I finished eating the body, I discovered it was your master's degree certificate that was used to wrap it. What if you will? So that is the essence of paper as a way, that with which we wrap. Another way by which we enculturate is eton. And in the same fashion, eton comes from the verb ton, which is to shine, to reflect, to spread, to radiate, to illuminate. So, it is important for us to note, therefore, that when we are developing syllabi and curricula to enculturate, we should be looking at presenting morals to our children with convolved ideas, with tales, drill with tales, wrap our ideas with proverbs, explain them with proverbs, and compare issues with proverbs so that our children can develop the capacity to learn by analogy. And it is interesting that Alo, Owe, and Iton in Yoruba are not so. They are cracked to reveal the knowledge inside. All this happen naturally when we adopt these methods that our forebears have used over and over and over to produce us that are now so fascinated by modernity, and we are proud that our children cannot speak our language. It is all about representation of both material and non-material, the ideational realities of our environment by analogy. And this is done for many reasons, but primarily for cognitive convenience, efficiency in understanding and remembering, and it involves the development of both artifacts, which are the material objects we create in the process, and knowledge facts, which are the additional objects we create in the process. As a young boy in secondary school, I was taught geography. I was taught about summer solstice, I was taught about winter solstice, and I was taught about equinox. And I kept wondering, what do they really mean? They talk about shorter days and longer nights. They are really not short. They are about the same thing. Then I grew up and went to England to do some business. Went out shopping one day, came back tired, and just laid on my bed about 5 o'clock. And then I woke up by 9 o'clock. And I had a meeting for 9:30 next day. So when I woke up 9 o'clock and I looked up and there was sun in the sky, I jumped out of bed, I ran into the bathroom, I quickly washed, I was trying to see if I can still catch my 9:30 a.m. appointment. But the time was 9 p.m. I had never seen the sun at 9 p.m. in my life. And it was then I understood summer solstice, winter solstice, and equinox. So, why belabor our children with knowledge they do not need? Let them go and learn it when they wake up by 9 o'clock. One of my nieces, who prides herself in bringing up enlightened children, her 8-year-old daughter came to show off to me. Old man, old man, she said, yes. I said, what about it? She said, they taught us in school. So I called my niece, I said, your child is blabbing at age 8. blabbing should have passed. It is because your child is not in the tradition, in the culture that presented that rhyme, that she's blabbing. Old MacDonald had a farm. Said, do you know the difference between MacDonald, Donaldson, and O'Donnell? MacDonald is a Scottish, because that is how the Scottish say son of Donald. Son is English. That is how the English say son of Donald. O'Donnell is Irish. That's how the Irish say son of Donald. Now, if you are not aware of that cultural reality, you can't understand the nursery rhyme. Old MacDonald had a farm. And on his farm he had a donkey. E-A-E-A-O, with a woof, woof here and a woof, woof there. Here a woof, there a woof, everywhere a woof, woof. Go, like donkey. It's not woof. Go, like donkey. The back of a dog is defined by factors of shape and size of the throat, the mouth, and the nasal cavity. So, Ageloge can never say woof. Arupe never say woof. So, when you teach your child that dogs go woof, woof, you are inflicting cognitive dissonance on them. Teach your children with things they can relate to in the environment. Compare old MacDonald had a farm. Compare old MacDonald had a farm to Murigo, Koko, Mopeye Keye, Mopafe, Cafe, Momu Funano, Nono Lai Gay, Momu Foloja, Oduse Nokalo, Odojo Kege, Ron Silly, Oloja. Let's leave it there. I went hunting. I hunted birds indiscriminately. I hunted rodents indiscriminately. I gave some to Nono. Nono said, no, you don't eat this. I gave those to Oloja. Oloja gobbled it up. 7 days later, Oloja died. Money didn't want to eat. What you rent to Jerry? You are told this is not meant to be eaten. Say, well, I saw somebody who ate it. Say, okay, who is the person? Well, he's now dead. Well, if it's meant to be eaten, he won't be dead. He will still be living. So, that is how that nursery rhyme is used to teach our children, first and foremost, survival in the local environment. As against summer solstice and winter solstice, they will talk about Omutomosoku, which is still there, getting late, but goes down suddenly, and the child is stranded in the farm because it takes about 30 to 45 minutes to walk from Ibadan to Igonkuto, where I come from. Our farm is in Ibadan. It takes about 45 minutes to walk from Ibadan to Igonkuto. So if you don't live in daylight, you'll be walking through the bush at night. But there is the kind of sunlight at a particular time of the month that is still bright around 6 o'clock. And by 6:15 it has gone dark. That is what they call Umuntomasoko, the kind of sunlight that deceives the child to stay longer than necessary. So these are the kind of knowledge our children need of their environment, not summer solstice and winter solstice. Also, the nursery rhyme teaches scruples. It teaches scruples, Asha versus Ewo. Asha, àwọn tí Asha láti máa ṣe torí pé wọ́n wọ̀, wọn kì í ṣe Ewo. Also teaches environmental conservation. Don't kill birds indiscriminately just because you have the power to kill birds. Don't kill rodents indiscriminately just because you can. And all this leads to the restrictions later in life of hunters and ode who have the restrictions of ode ki peran to ba ngun. ọdẹ kìí pẹran tọ̀lẹ̀tọ̀lẹ̀, ọdẹ kìí pẹran tó lọ́mọ lẹ́yìn. A self-respecting hunter will not hunt a mating animal because you feel they are helpless. They are carried away with what they are involved in. And then you don't take the opportunity to shoot them down. A self-respecting hunter does not kill an animal that is pregnant. And a self-respecting hunter does not kill an animal that has children after it. This is the highest lesson in child and growing into professional hunting can be taught in environmental conservation. Because if you kill a mating animal, you have truncated the generation. If you kill a pregnant animal, you have truncated the generation. If you kill an animal with children behind it, you have truncated the generation. These are very, very important elements of our traditional education system that assures enculturation. And we should look carefully at all these. These are just examples. There are myriads, there are very, very many. I'm not saying that you should teach children Moreko Koko, but I am saying that there are values, there are gems in our traditional ways of life that brought those who begat us to where they were, for them to be able to beget us and send us to school. And we should not start thinking because we have had this novelty of an education, we have now had something that is beyond them. Remember I told you, indigenous knowledge sometimes prompts novelty and modernity, and we should take very good account of that. Now, having said all this, I am inclined to talk about one of the issues at hand today, and I want to compare globalization to colonization. Colonization is the action or process of settling among an established control over the indigenous people of an area. That's colonization. You settle with people and take control of their circumstances and start determining what they do. It is the action of appropriating a place or domain for one's own use. That is what colonization is. We know it. We have experienced it. We are still struggling with it. It is still part of the issue. It's not a fact. What about globalization? Globalization is the growing interdependence in the world's economies, cultures, populations brought about by cross-border trade in goods and services, technology, and the flows of investment, people, and information. Now, if you look at colonization carefully, and you look at globalization carefully, there is a tendency, if we are not careful, that globalization will become an euphemism for colonization. Why do I say that? The thinker, Manuel Castells, one of the most forward-looking sociologists of the information communication technology, talks about the dichotomy of spaces. He says that there are two types of spaces. One is the space of place. That's the space we are all sitting in here. And some of us sitting in this space of place are also sitting in another space, the space of flows. Because I see a number of people talking to other people who are not here. You are using the space of place to interact with me, but also you are using the space of flows to interact with other people on your social media groups, your WhatsApp and all that. Now, the space of place is geographical, whereas the space of flow is ideational. Now, Manuel Castells says that the space of place is the space that humans first of all learned to live in. But now with the development of the so-called information revolution that brought about the information age that is bringing about the information society, we now find that we are living more and more and more in the space of flow. If you don't believe me, just imagine the fact that one of the ways of capturing the so-called information revolution is the replacement of transportation by communication. Why do I say that? To illustrate it, let me even use a transportation company. Uber, Bolt. For me, if I didn't bring a car here, I will have to carry the weight of my body to some roadside somewhere, where some other taxi driver is carrying the whole weight of their car, going around hoping to find somebody who is interested in going where they are interested in. But what Uber and Bolt does is that they use information to prevent that need. I sit here and I make the arrangement, and it tells me there's a car waiting down there for me. So that car is not roaming around, wasting petrol, hoping to find somebody. I am not walking away in the sun, hoping to find the taxi. That is how we have used communication to replace transportation. So these two spaces of flow, we need to look at them very, very carefully if we want to prevent globalization from becoming an euphemism for colonization. Why do I say this? Colonization was about our space of flow, and the space of space, the physical space, our mineral resources, our human resources, the things that occupy our space. Colonizers had to leave their own space and come and take over our space and colonize it. That's what we call them abolition. So colonization is about the space of place. Globalization is about the space of flow. It is all this, you don't need to leave this place to do business with America anymore. You can use the space of flow. The question now is, the space of flow, the commodity that moves, the material that moves in the space of flow is information. The foundational substrate of information is language. Without language, there's no information, there's no communication. So, if we do not take hold of our language, we are allowing our space of flow to be controlled by other people. And the way to ensure that our space of flow does not get yielded to others is to continue to ground our children with indigenous knowledge that makes for what I would regard as localization rather than globalization. Because all these things they refer to as globalization, they are local habits, local ways of life taken up to a global level. When you get to the grass, you see that they are actually local ways of life. There's nothing called globalization in its own right. They are all local ways of life elevated to international level. So what I envisage of us is localization. About 70 years ago, the anthropologist we all know very well, by the name of Ulibaya, wrote an article on Yoruba drum. And one paragraph, he said, it is very difficult to get Oriki translated today, nowadays. Few educated Yoruba can still understand the talking drum. Even if one gets the drummer to give one the words, younger Yoruba will mostly find the ancient language beyond them. They have learned Shakespeare at school, but many of them were forbidden to speak Yoruba in their colleges. The chances of survival of this ancient poetry and music, that is the talking drum, are negligible at the moment. And this is the punchline. In January 1955, that was the year I was born, all children aged 6 will be sent to school compulsorily. And the talking drum is not on the new curriculum. That was 70 years ago that somebody observed that. We are back here today. These are the issues at stake. Because the Yoruba say, Adagba Kolu, Umililon Shoku. Those who learn to play the violin in their old age should be content with playing the second fiddle until their dying day. Yoruba tongue.
He has fed me and I'm filled to the brim. Yeah, a round of applause for him. Yeah, I've been able to pick some key things from what Professor Adekola said.
Doctor.
Dr. Adekola. I cannot be a doctor and you're a doctor.
Yeah, you did it.
Yeah, so core to that is localization, and I think that is fundamental. I think for me that is my picture. Localization instead of globalization, going local with whatever we infuse into our curriculum. So on that note, for this particular session, we're going to have a perspective from each of our panelists. I know we have my fathers, my mothers in the house, and we also have folks from the teaching line, and as well as from government. Yeah. So one after the other, please want to have your perspective about the keynote speaker's address, so that at least we understand your views about what he has said, and so that we can get. So on that note, I think I will start with Professor Duro Adeleke. We're going to have, let's say, between 3 to 5 minutes for you to share your perspective, your opinion about it. Thank you so much. A round of applause for him once again.
Primary school, taught in teachers' college, taught in secondary school, taught in College of Education, and taught at the university. So, I just straight to Faculty of Arts. And I just want to add this. Beyond rapping, you weave stories. Hello?
Yeah. Hello?
At Makassar. And again we have written. That is, because along the line, you will still laugh. And since the law, PAMO, it's a conundrum. Because you have to use your brain. And it will call for your experience. How far have you been observing your environment? And that's why he said something about
ecosystem. And there's another thing we talk about. Yes, Ìjàpá is the hero, but all the same, it is shown in that ecosystem that we have flora and fauna, human being and flora, human being and other things you can think of. And he said something very crucial. When you recall or you refresh your memory with a Bafafunwa Ife project. Teaching in indigenous languages from pre-primary and even up to GSS 3, the students or the pupils will be familiar with their immediate environment. And we only build on what we've learned in the primary school when we get to the university. So it's something that we should now, just as McDonald has a farm or whatever. The other issue I would have loved him to touch is the issue of cannibalization of textbooks. Because the curriculum experts may not be invited because of nepotism. It's happening now under this dispensation. But they will not bring in experts. Uncle Efinancio. It happened when I was in Mina. Somebody think you have to do this. My brother just put me there. I'm in social studies. I don't know anything. You can imagine. So my take now is that we should endeavor as much as possible to ensure that when people will be gathering together to get those, ensure you get people who are relevant in that thing. But I thought in your invitation you said we will be here till 3 o'clock.
We have other things with the offering and you're going to enjoy. You see, we are taking that. Yeah, now it's just to get your views and opinion about the keynote address speech. Yeah. So, on that note, I want to call on Professor C.O. Kolawole, his representative, Dr. Samuel Papa. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. My teachers are here. Okay, so such a very rich lecture and also thought-provoking. One issue that's really jumped at me, that I think we cannot overemphasize, is the place of language. I keep saying it that English language is not the language of knowledge. And English language is not the only language of development. And of course, English language is not the language of civilization, as it were. Those, unfortunately, the lies. And India, jumps very quickly at me. India took everything, they had the same history. From Britain, they were equally colonized. But there was something they did not allow colonialism to take away from them. It is their language and their culture. Anywhere you see them, they wear their culture like a cap. And in the educational system, you see, they are free to, is it code switch now or code mix? When you listen to an Indian speaking, they flow into their language and they flow back into English. They are proud anytime, any day they are proud of their accent. You know, they are proud of their language. And if you notice the lecture, it's only when, you know, Prof, let's adopt that for this one. It's only when the Yoruba is coming, that's when I'm feeling the vibe. I don't know if you also felt it that way. And that tells us that there is a special connection with your mother tongue. I am, of course, not satisfied with the policy that talks about, you know, educating the child for 4 or 5 years with the language of the immediate environment, then you do the rest in English. If we must, you know, if Africa, if we must realize ourselves, if we must taste development, then we cannot afford to do away with our language. We must be willing, we must be ready to integrate it at all levels of education. Zimbabwe is so Yoruba, you know, when Toban so Yoruba, just like he alluded, and he will look at. It's not speaking your language. Kéèyàn sọ Yorùbá, pé mo sọ Yorùbá, ó sọ wípé mo local. Nígbà tí mo bọ́ láàárọ̀, ó ṣe níbi kí n wọ shirt àti trouser, mo kàn wá ronú mo ní Indigenous something la máa ń lọ, jẹ́ kí n wọ èyí tí mo wọ̀. Mi rí káàpù bá mo ní bá káàpù. So, ìgbà tí mo dé bí mo rí pé òyìnbó yẹn náà la dẹ̀ ń sọ jù. Bóyá ká tún, you know, things like this, when we come to this forum, we should, you know, as we are talking, we should be proud. And one of the things we should be submitting is that our indigenous language, even when we come to meetings, we should be proud to speak it. It's enough that we begin to, you know, identify people as intelligent because they can speak fluently in English language. That will not eventually make them a Briton. So if we are Africans and we are Africans, we should emphasize the place of our language. That is where the values are. That is where the culture, that is where, you know, the law, the Asha, that is where we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yeah, so this is just, this session is just to have your short opinion, perspective about the keynote address. We're still going to have a session whereby we're going to deliberate, panelists are going to have enough time to deliberate on the theme of discourse. Yeah, so the next person I'm going to call on is Professor Esther Olu. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. Interest in this theme, what were jumping at me. The first thing I noted about his address is contextual knowledge of our curriculum. See, I'm just relating it straight to the curriculum now. Contextual knowledge of the curriculum. If you look at what we have in our, I believe teachers and practitioners are here, if you look at what we have in our curriculum, particularly the content, how many of these themes are relevant to our environment? How many do we take from the indigenous knowledge that we are aware of, that we know that will be beneficial to the learners, particularly at early childhood level of education? Then, culturally relevance of what we expose our children to. How relevant are the practices, the knowledge that we expose children to, that will make them not lose their identity? If you're a Yoruba boy, or Hausa girl, or Igbo sharp, what is that that makes you stand out as a Yoruba girl, Hausa boy? And it is linked with language. You cannot find any Hausa boy or man standing before his parents speaking other language. You cannot find an Igbo boy, wherever you find the Igbo, in Nigeria, America, wherever, not understanding the language Igbo. It is we, the Yorubas, that we want to show off, that we know how to speak in English, to show off. And despite the fact that it is in the policy, many people are not implementing it. Whereas, culturally relevant content, methods, pedagogy will make the child identify who he is, and who he is will last forever. Not what the child is, not the child is doing. If you are a doctor, you will retire as a doctor one day, but who are you as a person? And our values, our integrity, our norms are embedded in our culture. If a Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo boy is shaking his finger, his hands with his father and forefathers, a Yoruba girl will have to kneel down to greet elders. And also, experiential. That's what also jumped at me. Experiential knowledge. These children, particularly in our indigenous knowledge and culture, we make our young ones, I'm speaking about the young ones because I'm a child educator. When you make them to experience it, when you make them part and parcel of their daily living, that it becomes one of them. I'll just tell a short story. My grandchildren used to come for Christmas with me. And Christmas season, we sing Christmas songs. So I heard Christmas song on the Instagram in Ijebu, because one of their parents is Ijebu. So, Aki aku ọdún o, aku ọdún o, aku ọdún o, ọdún ayabo fún déédéé rẹ ni. I told the children, because they are with me. Later, I said, if you can speak one sentence in Yoruba, you will collect something. I started with 1,000 naira. They said, Jesu gbà mí. 1,000. Another one said, mo ti jẹun, collect that. I changed the rule. I said, if you can speak one language, if you can speak one sentence in your dialect, either Ijebu dialect, grandmother is from I am from Owo. If you can speak it, that we collect 5,000. First day, second day, nothing. The third day, one came to me and said, Ekwodu. I said, that's Yoruba, general Yoruba. It's not in the dialect. The other one reminded, Odu ayabo fundede eni. I said, collected 5,000. I said, no more Ijebu now, Owo. We've never been to Owo before. We've never had anybody speaking in Owo. I said, well, because in the first place, I want to save my money. Secondly, I don't know that they will find out. The following morning, they were knocking at my door, peeping, peeping. I said, don't disturb me. They kept on peeping. I said, what is it? Erubo. Erubo. I said, what is Erubo? I couldn't pick it. So the sister shouted from ground floor, said, it means, mommy said, it means welcome. Oh, I said, Erubo. That is Owo dialect. Erubo means welcome. The children have never been to Owo. They have never heard their parents speaking, but they ask their parents, that is inquiry. Can you give us, because it earns us money, can you give us just one sentence in Owo? And they want my money. So what am I saying? That when we expose children to experience this in a fun way, particularly young children, they will be interested. And it's also going to indirectly teach other skills which we are emphasizing in school. Discovery, inquiry, and so on and so forth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Madam Adekoye, the headmistress, University of Ibadan Staff School, Walker. A round of applause for her. You are welcome. Give his perspective on the keynote address is Professor Kola Babarini. A round of applause for him.
Acknowledging and thanking the organizers for bringing up this. It's quite important, particularly at a time like this. Secondly, let me acknowledge the keynote speaker, Ojogbon Adebola. Very profound pieces relating to the theme of the discussion of today. What I can make, at least as a preliminary observation from the presentation, I want to leverage more maybe on my background as a student of philosophy and sociology of education. He has identified very key and fundamental issues. Just as Chino Achebe said, we must find out where and when the rain started to beat us. So let's go to the fundamental, because if you don't understand the fundamental, the foundation, how can we place anything worthwhile on it? I think the major issue he identified is that the issue we are dealing with relate more to who we are, a question of identity. And that is why in philosophy they talk about nature of man and the universe, where he lives. So if we don't understand who we are, so what can we then possibly build on it? We also talk about that man, what does he know? And when I say he, I mean she. So, nature of knowledge. What do we know as a people? And lastly, what is it that we value? What are those things we regard as important? If we are able to deal with those fundamentals, we understand them well, then we proceed to the next level. How do we transmit who and what we have to the next generation so that we can ensure the survival of our generation? And that is where education, which is described as enculturation, comes in. For those of us who speak so much Turinchi, in education we talk about pedagogy. the science of teaching. If you are humanity based, we say the art of teaching. So, all these are important. And if we don't understand them, we run into some contradictions. And I will, at least as a preliminary observation, raise this point that in Africa we suffer so much crisis of identity. Scholars have gone into this. I will cite a particular one of Mobini, who wrote about education in Africa. Said among the Africans that we met, many of them find it difficult to even describe themselves. Are they black? Are they Negroes? Are they African? Said, how can any form of education take place with somebody who doesn't even understand who he is? So today, there's a concept I've been teaching my students in a sociology class, marginal man, the evolution of the marginal man. And that is a man of two cultures or citizens of none. We belong to the English and our own, but we really don't belong anywhere. Our names are not really our names. We bear names that really don't have meaning to us. And so when they want to sing praises and all that, we can't relate because these are names that we cannot sing praises about. We dress in ways that are not suitable to our environment simply because we simply want to copy. We speak the language that is not ours, and so we speak it very badly. And all of these things woven together affect the way we think and our understanding of development. And so today, the whole educational policy and the way we try to bring it about have been a lot of confusion. I'm going to end by just stating that in the past few decades, I'm into what we call faculty development. I train my fellow teachers on how to teach better. And I discovered something that in all of my performances, the very moment I introduced stage performances, I realized that I was able to communicate better and link with the audience better. After making some presentation, I would change on the stage, donning some traditional wares, and then use indigenous language, either to tell a story or a redo or sing some songs and all. And I realized that those are aspects that people hardly ever forget. And from that point, I realized that until we go back to the roots and make use of the content of our indigenous knowledge, because there is the philosophy of indigenous knowledge, there is the content, and then there is the method. Until we are able to link all of this together, then we have not started. And I hope this will be a major effort in getting us along. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bakri. Yeah, so on that note, I'm going to call on Mrs. Oyida Mola Ike. She's the proprietress, the Next Montessori School and the Bridge International School, Ibadan. A round of applause for her.
Àwọn èèyàn tó bá rí mi, nǹkan tó máa ń ròyìn pé àwọn òyìnbó Gẹ̀ẹ́sì lélẹ̀ máa wá sọ́n bí àwọn ọ̀mọ̀wé àwọn ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n. And lóòótọ́, nǹkan ayọ̀ ni fún mi pé ẹ pè mí sí irú ìpàdé báyìí. Torí pé mi náà wá kọ́ nǹkan ni, àmọ́ gbogbo ẹ̀ tán. So mo wá jókòó ti àwọn dádì mi. Ojoojúmọ́ ni mi máa ń dùn tí n bá ń gbọ́ nǹkan tó dé tó bá sọ̀rọ̀ because ara ilé ni wá. Wọ́n fẹ́ mi sínú family wọn ni. So bẹ́ẹ̀ ni. So àwọn tí n bá need láti bá anybody sọ̀rọ̀ nípa nǹkan tó bá ní ṣe pẹ̀lú èdè wa, àwọn ni máa ń sá lọ bá. Àmì òkè, àmì ìsàlẹ̀, àmì gbogbo àwọn náà máa ń tọ́ mi sọ́nà. Mo fẹ́ sọ nǹkan kan tó wà very important sí mi. Ilé dẹ̀ nìyẹn. Ilé ibi tí gbogbo wa ti wá. Gbogbo national curriculum, gbogbo education policy, wọ́n máa sọ pé ẹ̀kọ́ ilé ni ẹ̀kọ́ tí ń bẹ̀rẹ̀. Mo dúró síbí, mo ń ṣe Allo Children's Theatre nítorí ìyá tó bí mi ni. Ìlú òyìnbó ni mo ti lọ sí school, ni mo ti kàwé. Ṣùgbọ́n bàbá mi ní nǹkan kan. Bá ṣe ń dé Nàìjíríà báyìí, wọ́n rù wá lọ Iléṣà ni. A ṣe holiday kankan lẹ́kọ̀ọ́ wọ́n máa sọ wá sí Iléṣà nítorí bẹ́ẹ̀ mo gbọ́ tó tátàtà Ìjẹ̀ṣà nǹkan tí bàbá mi ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ ni pé tí wọ́n fẹ́ kí n fẹ́ Ìjẹ̀ṣà so ẹ lè sọ pé bàbá mi bóyá old time tribalist ni wọ́n tí wọ́n sọ fún pé tí mi ò bá mú Ìjẹ̀ṣà wálé wọn ò ní sìn mí lọ sílé ọkọ so thankfully mo dẹ̀ mú the last Ìjẹ̀ṣà man standing bẹ́ẹ̀ ni because mo dẹ̀ sọ fún bàbá mi níjọ́ sí mo pàdé the last Ìjẹ̀ṣà man standing pé Ọlọ́run fẹ́ràn wọn because mi rò pé Ìjẹ̀ṣà kankan wà tí mo lè fẹ́ láíláí because mo máa rò pé wọ́n lúko gan wọ́n local ṣùgbọ́n Ọlọ́run wá gbé last Ìjẹ̀ṣà man standing tó jẹ́ pé òyìnbó ẹnu ẹ̀ gún régé Ìjẹ̀ṣà ẹnu ẹ̀ gún régé Yorùbá ẹ̀ náà dẹ̀ gún régé bẹ́ẹ̀ nítorí kí ni nítorí ó bá ń lé ni torí àwọn bàbá tó bí gan tí wọ́n bá sọ èdè wa èdè abínibí wa awo yìí tí wọ́n bá sọ èdè Gẹ̀ẹ́sì awo yìí bàbá tó dẹ̀ bí ọkọ mi dẹ̀ jẹ́ ká mọ̀ wípé ẹni tí ó bá lè sọ èdè abínibí ẹ̀ dáadáa Gẹ̀ẹ́sì ẹ̀ náà máa gún régé so èmi náà ti wá kọ́ pé kò síbi tí máa lọ tó jẹ́ pé mi ò ní gbé èdè wa ní arugẹ àwọn èèyàn máa ń sọ nǹkan kan nípa àwọn ọmọ ọkùnrin mẹ́ta ni mo bí fún àwọn dáàdì wa níbikíbi tí àwọn ọmọ mi bá wà ìdọ̀bá àwọn ọmọ mi jẹ́ bí 6'3" in height wọ́n ga gan ṣùgbọ́n ìyẹn ò mean pé tí wọ́n bá wọ inú ibi wọ́n dẹ̀ máa kí everybody one by one pẹ̀lú full ìdọ̀bálẹ̀ kí ló dé tí mo ṣe lè kọ́ àwọn ọmọ mi bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn àwọn dáàdì mi ló jókòó báyìí kí ló dé tí mo ṣe lè kọ́ àwọn mi bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn nítorí pé ẹnìkan kọ́ èmi bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn náà to English mo kàn fẹ́ dẹ́kẹ́ mọ̀ pé mo gbọ́ Yorùbá ni I want to switch to English. We cannot at home. Moral instruction cannot be 100% taught in schools because even the teachers don't want lẹ́kọ̀ọ́. Àwọn teacher in need to man bá parents or I always ask them, who raised you? Ta ló kọ́ yín? So you cannot give what you don't have. Ilé láti padà lọ. Aláti lọ bá àwọn òbí wa sọ̀rọ̀ nílé. Kí là ń kọ́ àwọn ọmọ wa? Àwọn òbí wa gan ò ní values. Don't put everything on the national curriculum for education. The home is important, one more thing. And then language. I'm so happy, sir, that my brother mentioned language. Would you believe that in the United Kingdom, they are paying people £5,000 a month to speak Yoruba? Awala can appreciate in Kotani. My children went to school in England and I told them that Eko Yoruba ni ile nítorí pé kíni Yoruba èdè òfófó ni. Ẹ fẹ́ wà láàrin àwọn òyìnbó, ẹ fẹ́ sọ àwọn nǹkan kan tí ẹ fẹ́ jẹ́ kí wọ́n gbọ́ ẹ dá sí Yoruba. Because that is the only one language that you have on them. Wọ́n sọ Gẹ̀ẹ́sì, ẹ sọ Gẹ̀ẹ́sì. Ṣùgbọ́n tẹ́ bá fẹ́ sọ fún òyìnbó pé àbí kí ló ń ṣe tó ń ṣe bàlàbàlà, o lè sọ ní English. Wàá sọ ní èdè ẹni, and my children have come to appreciate it. I will have you know that my child, one of my sons, came home this holiday with his English friend. When his English friend was communicating, Professor Oyibo, his full English, he was saying, Ekaro, Odabo, Ajire, because he was so, he left here calling himself Toluige. Awani amoyi nkan ti Ọlọ́run fún wa. I, for example, Timban worship Ọlọ́run, mi ò lè worship Ọlọ́run in English. Okay, but I'm thinking about it, February lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run, tí ó bá le, mo lè sọ Òyìnbó. But ṣùgbọ́n tí kíní ẹ bá mú mi gan, mo máa ń kí Olúwa ní èdè kan nítorí pé èdè Yorùbá nìkan ni Ọlọ́run understand. We'll continue.
Yeah. Next person I'm going to talk on, I'm not going to call Mrs. Adekoye now. I want her to listen to what others have said, and she'll be the last person I'm going to call. Yeah. So I'm going to call on Mr. Aliyu Adebi. He is the Director of Education, Oyo State Universal.
Yeah, I want to thank the organizers of this program for making me to be a part of this very important discussion. Second, I want to also thank Dr. Adegola for the very rich keynote address. I've been greatly enriched through that address. I wish I could get a soft copy of the keynote address. Yeah, I also want to talk about using of indigenous language to teach pupils. We in Subel, we encourage our teachers in public primary schools to use indigenous language to teach in public primary schools. And I want to tell you that our research has shown that our more way to be watching for And another thing that the government has done, I also want to talk about enforcement. Government needs to enforce these things in our schools. During the tenure of late Governor Ajimobi, 3 days in a week, you go to the assembly ground and teach. You will teach one proverb in a day. I'm also we can form a assembly. One day, what it means, what it implies. I don't think that is being done again. That's why I talk about enforcement. Then mode of our addressing. Through the course of trainings in offices, I travel to North. The moment you get to Kwara, they don't wear suit. At a stage, but we don't value all these things in this part of the country. I think we need a serious reorientation in this part of the country. I think the government is doing something in that direction now. Just this week, state government just released a circular that we should be wearing actually on Thursdays. So we now have 2 days, but with a touch of Asha okay. So my stake is the use of. If you go to the federal secretariat, while I was looking for a job after graduation, I went to the Federal Civil Service Commission, then at Ikoyi. If you meet an announcer man, if you get to the office of your Yoruba fellow person, you say, with tribal mass, he will speak English to you and be telling you all those things, requirements that you cannot even meet. So my stake is that we need complete reorientation in the western part of the country with regards to having value for our language and our culture generally. Thank you.
So the next person I'm going to call is Mr. Akinwumi Okedegbe. He's the co-founder and teacher, Gracefield Private School, Bodija, Ibadan. A round of applause for him.
Yeah, I'm very glad to be here, and I want to thank the organizer this program for this very laudable program that I was invited to. For the first time, I heard so many things I've never heard about Owe and Alo, and Anito. Even the actual meaning, I was so surprised. What actually jumped into my mind was that we had so many things. We are so blessed. We are so endowed. But it's like a giant who doesn't even know its worth. We kept running after other people's things. We kept looking at other people's pastures, whereas our own pastures are very deep and green. Our language alone is I read somewhere about when the colonizers, whenever they want to come and colonize, when they send their ships for colonization, they put soldiers, they put social scientists who are going to study your language and your way of life. They put geographers who are going to draw maps and cattle something all these places, and they will put zoologists and botanists. What actually surprised me most was that they will put social scientists who are going to study your way of life and your culture. They are going to extract the good ones and they are going to add it to theirs. There is Iliaje in UK. There is Iliaje in UK. Actually, our problem is multivarious in this aspect, in the sense that it is the way we think, our psyche, the way we think and the way we look at things. Parents, intending parents will come to my school and the first question they will ask is that, do you have phonics teachers? Do you think phonics here? So because of that, it's business. Anyway, we have to get a phonics teacher. Very well. Even that phonics teacher may not be a very good one. I've had so many that are not very good. Because some say 0, oh, 0. No, phone number. 080. I said 0 is number. 0 is alphabet. You cannot use O for numbers. Things like that. So many, but the parents they are cool with it. We argue with her. I just took a Ghanaian teacher recently, Mrs. Ostapi. They were so glad because she's a Ghanaian. She will be calling church, and they are so happy. So, the other aspect I want to talk about is about government enforcement. If you look at the policies, some of the policies are very fantastic. They're very fantastic, but are they enforcing them? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sir, we've always known that implementation is a fundamental issue in within our space. So the next person I'm going to call on is Mrs. Titilayo Oladejo. She's a teacher at St. David's Anglican School, Kubeti, Molete, Ibadan. A round of applause for her.
Good morning, my daddies, my mommies, and my colleagues. I really appreciate my sister Adenike, for bringing me here again. I really appreciate her for this. And Daddy, God bless you, sir. Daddy was rich to come. In fact, mo enjoy was seriously. Mo kọ àwọn kan lẹ̀ fún àṣìbèrè lọ́wọ́ wọn. Sherry, when someone quick and inculcate our indigenous knowledge, it starts from home. Then from home to school. Government is a play ní classroom mi. Don't speak vernacular. What is vernacular? Is it English or Yoruba? Which one is vernacular? Is it English or Yoruba? English is vernacular, not Yoruba. Yoruba is real language. But that English, I borrow already, is a vernacular. Then I rub it off. Vernacular is what? English. Normal language is Yoruba. You speak Yoruba, but government, the two languages together when we are teaching the children in the school. So, they want to go, you still come back to Yoruba. Because in public schools, me in public school where I came from. If you don't speak Yoruba, they will just look like you. They will not assimilate anything whatsoever. But when you speak Yoruba, and then they feel I want to teach that they are going to say if they are away, they feel one sorrow. Assimilate. If you cannot in social materials. Click to see ọpọlọ. So láti lé dé school ṣe tó tẹ̀ wá lè ṣe ìgbà sí àwọn ọmọ yẹn later or sooner gbọ́ English dáadáa. Ọmọ tí ò bá lè sọ Yorùbá dáadáa, if that person cannot speak English and Yoruba very well, he will not be able to speak English. God bless us.
Thank you so much. A round of applause for her. She's the headmistress, University of Ibadan Staff School.
First of all, I want to tender my apology for coming late. My coming late is as a result of this thing we are talking about, indigenous knowledge. Before I go further, I greet everybody. I can, but I have to greet two people here. Professor, she is the driver that drove me to UI staff. Thank you so much for what you have imparted in me, for how you have held me, and I did not let you down. And that is why I'm here. And second person is Professor Baba. He was my lecturer and also my supervisor. So he has really included many things into my life, and I'm using it. God bless you. God bless you. This thing you're talking about, in fact, I don't. I know that I have missed a lot. But anyway, if I will say what they have said, you pardon me because I was not aligned. So now I say the reason for my lateness is this indigenous thing we are talking about. Home training. You know, the first port of call of any child is the home. So if the home is lagging, then there will be a problem in the school. And I want to let you know that these our children are very intelligent. What is the case? 4 of them. Yesterday, one person was there, one of the stellar in the school, crying to the office that children, some people are taking her things. How come? She saw the stick, long stick. The first time they went there, they took a long stick. They will use it to pack something. And they will use the stick to drag it to the door, and they will pick it and eat. They did that one on Friday. On Monday, they did the same. On Tuesday, when they saw that they cannot reach the place because the person now move it further, take another stick, join it together, and use it again. What are we saying? These children are intelligent, but we do not, the parents, and maybe I said the teachers, we do not really place them very well. We do not put that intelligence into use in them. Anyway, one of them was caught who brought other people, and that is why I invited the parents today. So, teaching, training come from home. We teachers, we experience a lot of problems, from home. Some of them, they will not give them enough food to eat. So those are the things. Though we cannot put aside the influence, the peer group influence. But indigenous, when you talk about indigenous education, it is the home that is very, very more important. And everybody has talked about language. Yes, I want to make myself an example. My firstborn, was taught in Yoruba because I was in school then. So he stayed with my grandma, with my mother. And it is a communal thing. So they taught him Yoruba. So he did not know much of English. Like the second born, who was taught in English. No, you are going to that type of school, you are speaking Yoruba. So this one, there was a time when he was 4 years old. One person saw him. He was going to buy biscuits, but the person thought that he had missed his way, and so they took him to the police station. So I want to tell you the reason why indigenous language is very, very important. They took him to the police station, and anytime you see a policeman with tribal mark, he will speak Yoruba. Anytime you see a policeman, that is light in complexion, he will speak English. So the Yoruba that he has been taught made him to be able to blend together. So there are many things to say, but because they say it is time, please.
Thank you so much.
He came from London. He was looking for somebody. He said, I'm looking for a person, a teacher that taught me in primary 5. You know, you cannot leave my primary 5 without learning at least 3 poems in Yoruba. And what is it? Number 1, Iṣẹ́ l'Ògùnṣẹ́, to teach them about hard work. Iṣẹ́ l'Ògùnṣẹ́, well, Iṣẹ́ l'Ògùnṣẹ́, and so he came from UK and said, I'm looking for that teacher. That it was that poem that keep on ringing in my ear that has made me to make it in life. And so when he saw me, he carried me home. I said, hey, you're the one who taught me to live, to work hard, and it has paid for me. So, God.
Thank you so much, Ma. So, like I said earlier, Ile Latin ko Eshorudi. And one fundamental issue that our children are having in this part of Nigeria is what confused identity. They are neither here nor there. Yeah, I developed a framework and I'm working with the next conference, AIKRN conference in Uganda. So I said, okay, let me send it to my students, develop content and all that. So have you developed content in Yoruba or in Indigenous? I said, I've developed content in English. I went to TikTok, I checked it. I said, okay. Are you going to develop the content in Yoruba? I said, Emma, I'm going to be thinking. I said, Yoruba so that in your go pay in your any more respect than a botolo so to or that. Yoruba be able to speak the English well. Thank you so much. We really learned a lot from you. We're going to go for tea break now, and that will last for like 15. After that, we're going to have
just
few minutes. We have participants that joined us and about the program and decided to join us. So we just have your view, just a word or two, a minute.
Mo jẹ́ olùkọ́ èdè àti àṣà Yorùbá. Mo ń kẹ́kọ̀ọ́ gboyè ọ̀mọ̀wé. Before I'll be able to say anything here, I would like to recognize the presence of my academic lord. Àwọn ni wọ́n tẹ̀ mí lójú ìwé. Àwọn gangan ni mo lè pè ní olúwa mi níbi iṣẹ́ akadá. Ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n Dúró Adélékè is my father. He taught me as an undergraduate, in masters, and as a PhD student. Bí a ṣe ń sọ lọ, mi ò ní nǹkan tó pọ̀ láti sọ nígbà tí ẹ̀yin ìyá mi àti bàbá mi tẹ́tí sọ ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ọ̀rọ̀. But what I would like to add is, à ń sọ wípé èdè Yorùbá ń kojú ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ èérí láwùjọ. Nǹkan tí mo tún rí tí ó tún jẹ́ kíkiní ìburú náà ní ipa tí ẹ̀sìn ti kó nínú èdè Yorùbá. Àwọn òyìnbó náà ni wọ́n gbé ìmọ̀ ìwé dé. Àwọn náà ni wọ́n mú ẹ̀sìn wá. Nǹkan tí mo wá rí ni pé wọ́n ti jẹ́ kí èdè Yorùbá àti àṣà Yorùbá, they've so much demonized it. They've made it so look primitive. Tó jẹ́ wípé téèyàn bá sọ èdè Yorùbá láwọn ibi kọ̀ọ̀kan, wọ́n máa wòyàn pé There was a time I was told to interpret in the church, and I was in trouble. I fell into trouble. And the trouble was, wọ́n ní ó ní Yorùbá wo lẹ́ ń sọ yẹn, ilé aláwọ̀ kọ́ la wa, ẹ̀dẹ̀ ń pe Olódùmarè, ẹ̀ ń pe kinní kan, ẹ̀rù bà wá. Even when I was taken to my in-laws place for the first time, meeting my in-laws, èmi kí wọ́n ní èdè Yorùbá tó jinlẹ̀ àbàbà àjíǹde ara yẹn máa jẹ́ òpin ìlolongojú o. And ever since that time, mo rí bọ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní bẹ̀rù mi. That even they don't want to má ṣe nǹkan bá ní àkọ́kọ́. Ẹ má sọ nǹkan kan, even my mother So on the day of my wedding too, my father being a cultural ambassador, gbogbo bá a ṣe ìgbéyàwó ẹ mọ̀, Yorùbá ìjìnlẹ̀ làwa lò láti ìgbà yẹn bí n bá ṣe ẹ̀gbọ́n wọn lè bá mi pé ẹ dákun o, ẹ mọ ìyà fún. There was today I boarded a vehicle too. If I can read Psalm 21 till man travel to ask for protection from the Lord. Kí ló dé tí mi ò lè fi èdè Yorùbá ṣàdúrà? I was in the bus. Ẹni tí ó gbàdúrà Christian ti gba tiẹ̀. Èmi jókòó mo ní ajígírí lọ́bẹ̀ ẹṣin lọ́bọ̀kọ̀, ọ̀kọ̀ lọ́bìrán, ìrànlọ́bí àjẹgbé ló dójú òkè, a kì í rájò ká má dé ní agbègbè mi délé koko. The only thing I noticed was èmi nìkan mo kù lórí seat. Jọ́pọ̀ ẹni tó jókòó sí mi kò tiẹ̀ fẹ́ ká ṣọwọ́ kan ọdún. This is one of the problems we are having. Even àwọn orúkọ tá à ń jẹ́ Ọ̀jẹ́tọ́lá. Òun ni wọ́n sọ mí ní kékeré torí ọmọ ilé elégún ni mí. Ṣùgbọ́n orúkọ yẹn fún mi ní problem gan nígbà tí mo bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní lọ sí school. I went to a Baptist school. Ibẹ̀ náà tọkọ náà ṣe Ọ̀jẹ́tọ́lá láéláé kò lè ṣẹlẹ̀ ọmọ náà yẹn. So because of this, Yorùbá is facing a lot of ridicules a lot of problems in the contemporary world because Yoruba has been made to look so demonic. When Yoruba was diabolic, Yoruba is this, Yoruba is that. Tell anybody that you are studying Yoruba. See, Matthew, I need PhD in emotion. So I need more to a lot of misconceptions about Yoruba. Ó tún kó nǹkan tó ń fi àjẹ́ wa gan tí ẹlòmíì ò kì í fẹ́ fi ara ẹ̀rẹ̀ hàn gẹ́gẹ́ bí ọmọ Yorùbá. Ẹ ṣé.
Thank you. Good morning. Actually, I heard about this meeting from my brother-in-law who lives me away, but they were very kind and allowed me to stay. I don't speak Yoruba, but I'll tell you something interesting. When my family moved from England back to Nigeria at the age of around 10, whenever I would go back from school in the little danfo at that time, when you reach the place that you want to get out of the bus, you either knock on the ceiling or you say, "Oh wow." But because I had a very English accent at the time, not now, my "owa" wouldn't sound very, very Yoruba. It would sound something maybe more like "owa" or "owa." And sometimes the conductors would be very nasty. They would look at me like this and they wouldn't stop. And they would carry me almost to the end of LA. And then I'd have to walk all the way back to Jericho before I could get back home. But recently, when I moved back to Nigeria recently, and I went to a friend's town in Ajebamidele in Ondo State. I don't know if anybody knows it. And for some reason, maybe because of age now, I just noticed that as I wandered around and interacted with the children, when I speak my really bad Yoruba, nobody laughed at me. And now it has made me so confident that I'm in the buses, I'm everywhere on the road now, and I'm speaking my very bad Yoruba, but I don't care anymore. So it's really interesting to be here and listen to all of this, because it seems to me Yoruba is under stress, so you have to do something. Yeah. Thank you so much.
I want us to do before leaving here. Mrs. Olinda Ike said the home. Everybody is saying the home, but I'm saying that there is nothing at home. Because a lot of mothers, fathers, they don't speak Yoruba, they don't understand Yoruba. So you are saying go back home. To where? So as we are living here, let's look for a way out. There is nothing at home. Nobody can teach anything at home.
Yes, thank you.
Wow, that's that.
I'm Agnes Ademakinwa, a fellow of AIKRN. My area of research is in the area of identity, and that is something that is I'm passionate about. I think one of the drivers to the issue of identity and indigenous knowledge system is religion, as he has rightly said. I make no apologies. I'm a Christian from the Pentecostal extraction, and one sees the kind of names, that our children are given. I was interacting with a student of mine, and I asked him, "What is your name?" He said his name is Light. I said, what does that mean? Are you saying Imole? He said, no. It's Light. And I looked and I said, why Light? Are your parents, which tribe? He said Yoruba. So I was quick to ask, which, religion do you practice? That my parents are pastors in a church. And I said, wow. You see, I've seen how much religion has really brought down our indigenous identity, and it's causing a lot of crisis. Because I wouldn't know how you wake up and call a child surprise, or call a child all sorts, wealth, anointing. I'm a Christian. I have no apology for that. I know the significance of these, names in Christendom. But then to now go and give your child that kind of name, you remove everything, that the child should stand for. If the child were to find himself or herself abroad and identify the Tower of Babel, God was the one that gave everybody his own language. And that does not really remove from the fact that if I have to be an English name, I've become okay. And so these are the issues, that we really need to look at. And moving forward, because our parents ourselves, most of us are parents, we are drivers of this kind of what I call third generation slave colonization. And we really need to stand up for what we believe in, and pass this across. Because our children, you look at teenagers, they have lost it and they are losing it in terms of identity. They are nowhere. And we really need to do something in order to bring these children back to mainstream culture, mainstream identity, so that they will be balanced. A lot of them are having psychological problems as a result of this. So this is a very, very, important issue that we are looking at. I pray God will help us all.
Thank you. Yes, sir. So don't let me mix it up. Yeah. So back here. So we're going to go for tea break for 15 minutes. So you can. Okay, we shift this so it's outside.
I picked that from my background from growing up. A cousin of mine lived with us. As a matter of fact, his father, my dad followed his father. So we're first cousins, we bear the same surname. He lived in our house. And as a little girl, I wanted to go to his room to play. Sincerely, I didn't know anything. I didn't attach anything to that. But my grandmother would stand up. Oh, but no, yàrá dáre. Dáre tó ń tọ́jú oríṣiríṣi. Generation yẹn ni iná tó máa ń fa iná báyìí. Tomato red, tomato blue. And dáre tó ń tọ́jú oríṣiríṣi. I couldn't relate with what she was saying. As a young girl, I just wanted to go and gist with my cousin. But just yesterday, I was telling my student, we were writing WAEC, and two of my friends came to live with us. One male, one female. I had the paper, I went to school. That my friends, they were there. And my grandmother tiptoed. She got to the room, she shouted, "Hey! My friend had to scream that because if she could go with that message, it's only CNN that could stop her. So we were fortunate. There are things we know that, you must not. It's now that I start hearing about incest, about cousins sleeping together, that I now started appreciating what she did for me then. I'm the firstborn of my mom. Then she will say, "This is 100 naira. Oh yeah, Oma Sebe. Up till now, we don't buy food in my house. We don't go out to buy food, you cook. You are my firstborn, you are my partner. Oh yeah, Joko. Oh yeah, Maru. Before I got married, my 100 naira Sebe. My mate would be like, Ibolo Tiko is my mom, my grandma. But these days, they are not available. They are not available. Then we cannot fold our hands because they are not available. We will do our part because we've recognized the fact that education is actually a weapon to change the world. Also, Julius Yeyere said, the education we seek must serve the people. It must be based on African realities and values. And I told Professor Afolai, I said, thank God for Professor Esther Olulu. She was the one that baptized me into indigenous knowledge. She was the one that traveled to Canada. And whenever she goes for conferences, anything she brings, it becomes national anthem for all of us. And she came, she said, indigenous knowledge. The first time I showed the title of my thesis to her, she said, sincerely I thought she was mocking me. And for good 6 months, she didn't even open my thesis at all. I would come, we would discuss. Culturally based instructional strategies was what I worked on. And she made me to think. I used to tell her that she pressed me. That things that I didn't even know that was inside of me actually came out. And we came to identify 3 areas on a culturally based instructional strategy. We came about the medium of teaching, then, which Daddy mentioned, the storytelling, the games, the rhymes, the music. Then we came about the medium of the immediate environment. And then we came about materials that were named and found in the immediate environment. Teacher will always say, Ijobo for any materials. Ijobo will supply materials. And there are things around that can actually be used to teach. And we call them, from that our work, we call them 3 M's. methods, medium, and materials. Very beautiful. Then Professor Babanide was the one that taught us about imaginary man. You are neither there or here. Oyibo will never accept you. And here, you are nobody. You don't know how to relate properly in your environment. When I was discussing with Mrs. Ige, I was about mentioning an example, a living example. One of my uncle married 2 white women. He practiced African issue with them. Yes, sir. Professor Bangoli Fokumbi. He died 2003. One of them just died last year, December. She could not stay in US. She will go and come back to Nigeria and be running around Ife markets, buying a wedu, buying whatever. When we are having occasion at home, she will be giving people envelope. She doesn't call me by name because she was told that any child that was given birth to before you were married to that family, you were not allowed to call the child by name. She came since 1977. And you know they accepted these, our practices. So what is wrong with us? Till she died, last 2023, she died. She never put chemical on her hair because my uncle was conservative. She plaited her hair too. The man died. She was still with us. So that's why we are here today. We appreciate every of our contribution. In fact, if we were to say we should be going to, we've learned a lot, but we want to have cogent points. And the first one we want to discuss now is on the philosophy of education. It was projected to us. Look at it. This is what we have. I know the man from Superb said it, and we all know it that they are written. But with this, we just want to deliberate on from here. We want to look at the past. Because if you don't know your history, you are lost. We want to look at the past, where we are at the moment, then where we are going to. This education is the weapon. We cannot deny that fact. Either at home or in school, we cannot just ignore the fact that we need this. So this is what we want to look at. Look at number 1. Education is an instrument for national development and social change. Can we look at that? Can we just ruminate on how we can use this? Because if we cannot link the indigenous knowledge to the achievement of this, government is not going to change this in a hurry. So we're looking at how do we use this indigenous knowledge we're talking about to achieve what we have listed in. Promotion of a progressive and united Nigeria. See, education maximizes the creative potential and skill of the individual for self-fulfillment and general development of the society. D, education is compulsory and a right of every Nigerian, irrespective of gender, social status, religion, color, ethnic background, and any peculiar individual challenges. And lastly, education is to be qualitative, comprehensive, functional, and relevant to the need of the society. Which society? America or Nigeria? We know that this is our own philosophy. So we want to hear your perspective on linking indigenous knowledge to the achievements of this. I'll start with you, sir.
That is the total package, the objective. But when we talk about Yoruba education, the central focus is Omoduabiism. And that is all encompassing. Whether you are very hard work, you are trustworthy, don't cheat people, issue of fairness. That is central. And then people like, scholars like Baba Awodi and a host of others, Professor Loloye. We've seen all those. Now, but before I can tackle this very well, I want to start from Ojoban Tunde Adebuka. He said something about globalization and colonization. Later, globalization. We have to go back to our 17 SDGs that will assist us. And there, we talk about the issue of 17 agenda goals. And this, we need to look at it very well. I think some of us must have seen one particular picture from Ibadan area, where they placed a little child in the river. That one is beyond physics. The issue of gravity, it defies it. Okay. That is immediate environment. And they are using that to say that if a woman is promiscuous, she's going to have problem. Now, one of my, and that is my first grandchild, she's in UK. When I say we, myself and my late wife, we always render our oriki. We just say, Abeke, Oma Kogunri, Oma Bulesugo, Oma Bio Siodera, Ilo Timbo. Then she will end it. No, Koko Fumiwa, Ebino, Nimusupo, Fanadele. You fail to bring something for me, I will not give you anything either. So, that is the issue of teaching and the issue of immersion into natural culture. Wọ́n lọ mọ tó ẹni tó bá sọ lẹ́nu ó sọ àgbòyàkọ́. Now, when you talk about Aro, I will give you the issue of Asito Tokere. Now, what? That is Asin Okere Ijapa. What that alone the value is geared towards conflict management. Number one, conflict at least will involve two people. And there will be a third party intervention. And it's not too good to be supporting one of the fighters.
and that's the reason why Olaja tó forí gbòòrò tí imú ìjàpá tó fi bùkán kó tó fi lọ. Now, then another issue is the issue of the Oba. Okere has a farm, but Okere is not ready to give anybody part of the produce of the farm. At the end of the day, Ijapa is able to grow the farm, and Ijapa decide to feed everybody, having been assisted to clear the farm. And we do it. Some women will build houses without telling the husband, and they will do the property. They are lawful. Are you doing the right thing at all? And when we talk about equality, we don't have it. For instance, Oshiomane was talking this morning, telling us that illegal mining is going on in the northern part of the country without any harassment. But the southerners are being harassed. Where is the fair play? Where is the equality? And that is part of our problem. How many?
Thank you, sir.
About Nicola cannibalize. Àwọn tá a máa kó sínú àwọn tó máa develop curriculum. Kọ̀rí ẹ má bínú. Ó jẹ́ wípé àwọn tó mọ̀ ti fún tẹ̀dọ̀ nǹkan tó yẹ kó wà ń bẹ̀. I will go to Dr. Mama.
Advocate indigenous knowledge, but government ti ní philosophy. Báwo ni a ṣe lè lò láti achieve? Tá a bá sọ pé a fẹ́ lọ sọ fún government nísìnyí pé ẹgbẹ́ indigenous knowledge wọlé, wọ́n dẹ̀ ti ní philosophy wọn and this has been one highlighted. How can we tell them that our indigenous knowledge can achieve this?
Well, láti bẹ̀rẹ̀, to start with, the indigenous knowledge had worked, and failures of the process that produced us are apparent. In the fact that some of us are neither here nor there. Joshaka, Soshoku, Akashami, so at least that is a clear indication that whatever it is that we have got out of this philosophy is not necessarily appropriate, and there's a need therefore to look at alternatives. And these alternatives are some of the issues that I've highlighted earlier on, that they are there. We have evidence that there are ways by which we can bring up our children within processes of enculturation rather than acculturation, which is we are bringing them up as though to suit a different environment. There are people who have argued, for example, that when you teach children in the local language and they graduate in the local language, that you have denied them the capacity to work abroad. It just reminds me of Professor Liko Samkuti, when he was Minister of Health, somebody raised the point. I said, you know, these days, the kind of education we are giving our students, our doctors are not employed abroad anymore. I said, did we train our doctors to work abroad? We train them to solve the problems of our environment. So when we look at education as a process of producing agents that can bring about change in the environment, in our environment, then we should fit the education process to produce agents that have relevance for the environment. So I don't think there's any problem in convincing government or even envisioning this philosophy and interpreting this philosophy from the point of view of indigenous knowledge. Because indigenous knowledge is knowledge, like I said earlier on, that evolved over a long time, adapted itself along the way to the local environment. And that is why it is applicable, it's adaptable to the environment. The last point I made, I read this thing by Mr. Wilbert, who said that in January 1955, all 6-year-olds, it's going to be compulsory for all 6-year-olds to go to school, yet the talking drum is not on the syllabus. Every 6-year-old in England either learns to play piano or to play flute or to play one musical instrument or the other. It is a given. But there are schools in Nigeria that even now struggled to bring classical music to their curriculum. It is not in itself wrong. It's widening the perspective of the children. You should not, for the sake of widening your children's horizon, deprive them of their reality. You can take this philosophy to any part of the world and they will build their own indigenous knowledge on it, and it will work. Thank you.
You know, I said it at the beginning, we can't change the philosophy, but we have to make something out of them. I will read out all what we need to discuss so that once you get the mic, just go through them because of our time. We want to keep us seated more than necessary. The philosophy, that one is number one. Then, indigenous practices and extracurricular activities. These days, people are living a sedentary life. The type of game that children are getting involved in, even when the school now sees play time as the time that they are wasting their time. If they are being engaged in indigenous activities, we can know the difference, but I'm leaving that for us to discuss. Then the third one, government/school owners in making classroom practices culturally relevant. What is government doing? The school owners, because we know they are business or profit oriented, we cannot actually dictate the tune for them, especially in Nigeria that we have British, American curriculum, Franco, whatever curriculum. What efforts are they putting in place to make classroom practices culturally relevant? Then, lastly, strategies for incorporating indigenous knowledge into the educational curriculum, because we don't just want to discuss them, we want to suggest livable strategies. We don't want to tell them that, oh yeah, so these are the 4 core things we want to discuss. So anyone you feel like you want to contribute, you okay.
Granite, because I needed to take it abroad. Small ori omolo. Mo bá gbede lóyìnbó. Wọ́n bá wò mí bí pé mo drop láti heaven. Pé kí ló gbé wá, mo bá demonstrate pẹ̀lú ẹ̀gúsí. because it teaches children both fine and gross motor skills. So it's not just one law, and then it teaches you to clean up, so there's etiquette involved as well. Eye-hand coordination, God bless you, sir. So those things, they were like, how is this woman able to do these things? But the one that blew them out of the water, sir, was in Montessori. We have what we call the Montessori bells. Now, Montessori bells helps the child to refine hearing. So there are a set of bells, 5, 10 of them, but 2 sound alike. So we use it to refine hearing, because before the child starts phonics, we have to make sure that the child doesn't have any hearing problem. Because there's certain alphabets that sound similar, like and So if a child's hearing is not refined, if the child doesn't pass through the stage of the Montessori bells, we make sure the child repeats it until the child can pair it successfully. And the Montessori bells, when I tried to buy them for my school, they were £499. If you see them, they look like God crafted those bells themselves. But I'm thinking, why am I spending £499? When in church, so when they lost the instrumentalist, but please, can you help me tune the sound? I was going to use shekere, but shekere doesn't have that range. So I now went to them, that gong, that Igbo gong, I sat down with an Igbo man, we tuned it in such a way that we got 5 sets that sounded alike. And then I went to my local carpenter, and I told them to create a box, because every material you make, you must make it in a way that you can put it on a shelf, so that the child can access it. And the carpenter, I sat down, and which brings another issue, creativity in adults. If you are not a creative mind, you have no business in a preschool. I don't know about primary school, but if you're a teacher and you cannot make materials, you can't sit down and use your indigenous materials that are available to you to make materials, then you should go and work in a bank. So I sat down and they made slits on the box, and they arranged it. When the children finish, one packet for around, they will be able to open the box and put it back and keep it on the shelf. I did not know that my lecturers then were watching me. They were so blown away. In fact, Momu Piper of Hamelin, it was time for me to write literature. More Africanized it to Jerry. Instead of using the pipe, Molo talking drum. Instead of using the money, Molo cowrie shells. Instead of Nkoti Piper war, Agbada Tietu. So I presented it because we had to present it in a classroom. So I was dressing Oyibo children up indigenously. These white people were lapping it up so much because they had never seen anything like that. Fast forward to 5 years later, I finished, I graduated. I got a call from my school, and they said, we'd like to set up a meeting. And I'm like, meeting how? To cut a long story short, they dropped a grant in my lap simply because they are now introducing creative art in the classroom as a medium of teaching. And the Japanese have done it. I went to the gallery. What it simply means is they are giving me money to set up an art gallery in my school. And what will it cost me? I will go and look for indigenous elements, materials. Instead of using things like clay, Malabar cowrie shell, Malabar thatch from thatch roofs, we will create it and just put it in boxes on a shelf in our art and craft corner and unleash our children in that corner and let them get creative. Come up with, by the end of this year, they would upload it on an e-gallery, and we're putting Nigeria on the global platform. Now, how did we get to that stage? I was telling Obutunde that we got to that stage because at the time when I was learning, the culture in me came to the fore. I wasn't going to conform to what the Western world was giving me because the children that I'm raising now are not used to the blender. The children that I'm raising now are not used to the things that they used to, no, not more. Clean, vacuum, hoover. You know, so all those things that we use as our culture. The problem is we lack cultural pride. We're all here dressed in this manner. I will never forget, and I'll round up with this. A friend of mine, her husband, was 60 and they had invited us to a dinner. In short, I was the star of that dinner. Because people are hungry. People are hungry for us. Finally, a proprietress in this same Ibadan of a private school invited me to what's that word? She was launching a book. She invited me as one of the readers. And I got so excited. Humpty Dumpty. I was so upset, I declined. I'm like, I'm sorry, I cannot read Humpty Dumpty. Kilo ṣẹlẹ̀ sí Olúwọ̀nbí. Kilo ṣẹlẹ̀ sí àwọn stories tó jẹ́ pé ó bá wa dàgbà. Why are you writing about snow? Our children, that is not their reality. Miss Nika is here. She knows me. Everything I write about, it is local. You know, it's place about it. The reason why I started the Allo Children's Theatre, finally this time, is I traveled to Disney World with my husband. Our children were young. And I watched our children use my husband anyhow. We were buying Mickey Mouse with a photo frame, Minnie Mouse ribbon. Everything was Minnie Mouse and Mickey Mouse. Yes! And my children were crying. Emmo, I know easily on that trip, we spent nothing less than $300 because we were buying t-shirts of Ekute. When I got back to Nigeria, I thought enough. Kini Japan sheni we got Kini our animals tawani. Why can we not globalize our animals and start to sell school bags with Ijapa on it? Because our children are going around school carrying spending limo. Today, and our today is a fish. It is an elephant. It is about time that we started bringing our own indigenous animals out of the forest and taking them to the Western world.
Yes, I will come to you, sir.
Thinking of how to disappoint you. Until last year, I was the president of Philosophers of Education Association of Nigeria. So when we talk about philosophy of Nigerian education, this is an area where we have agreed that what is advertised as philosophy really not philosophy. You know, because when we want to say philosophy, fundamental issues. Who are we? What do we know? What knowledge do we count as important or of most worth? Failed theory. The society has been programmed in a way that will not last beyond 100 years. Because they indoctrinated the South against the North. We have been programmed to hate the Northerners. Meanwhile, they favor the North against the South. Divide and rule. And that thing is still working us today. They introduced a number of things like that. If we fail to address all those fundamentals, it will be difficult to have what they call elite consensus. You know, do we even agree on who we are? Do we agree on what we should know? Do we agree on the direction we should go? And until we begin to attack those things and begin to do a deprogramming system, so that you take pride on anytime I travel outside, I don't even go with jackets. I lose my traditional wear and all. And they love this thing more than, you know, what suit we will wear that will beat what they have. What music are you going to advertise that will beat their own music? My teacher and former head of department, Professor T.A. Balogun, father of science education, told me this earlier, I think when we were having our master's program. You know, Baba speaks very softly and all that. You know, brought up UK trainer and said he doesn't speak English with his children at home. That was a time when it was, you know, normal for so-called Akada to speak English with their children. He said he learned a bitter lesson. He was in UK and had a social gathering. And people are called, sing a song in your native language. He came out to sing this one, that this is our song. They're only using your own language to sing. He realized that he could not sing any song in his own language. And he said, ever since, he said, no more English with his own children. We bring them up as proper Yoruba children so that they will not suffer what he suffered. So where am I going to? Many of these practices that we build on new programs that we have been educated on, Montessori, Flaubert, and all that. If we look deeper into our indigenous, they are there, they have been there. But, it's a program, we have been programmed to see these things that they are the one. Mungo Park discovered River Niger. Colonial education, first law of graffiti, Isaac Newton. I had that when I was a very young boy. Lala Toroke in a Is it Isaac Newton that you have thought the great grandfather would never had anything about physics? So, in our different subjects, until and unless we can interrogate our indigenous knowledge, content, and use them in classes. A number of videos that I made, on which I've placed on YouTube, the ones that attracted so much visit is my story of Mungo Park, colonial education in Africa, and so many people love it. How did I get to that? We were involved in a program to train teachers across African countries, selected African countries, on how to teach better. Discussing the fundamental. They say, oh, teach philosophy, it is too abstract. People will run away. What is philosophy? It's about fundamental, it's about the way you teach it. So I said, okay, we bring up something. So I put some things together, something I worked on when I was a visiting fellow at University of Windsor in Ontario, Canada. So it came handy, and I put that together. But they wanted us to just tell us what you will do. We are starting tomorrow. We have 35 minutes, and I don't like long meetings. People know me. If I chair a meeting, short, let's just do business. So I said, my own is ready. 3 minutes, I told them what I will do in 3 hours. And then criticism came. No, we have to put this aside. The people will run to not. I was just smiling. So before they said, oh, so she will have to join you. I said, because she has her own module and all that. Oh, we have to integrate. This is just 7 p.m. It's tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. More than enough time to do whatever integration. So I went back to Nigeria. Of course, I took some of the suggestions and all that. So by the morning, the director of the program came to sit at my session because he wasn't sure. First session, if we got it wrong, people would be disappointed. Meanwhile, I already knew what I wanted. I went with some costume already. So after the initial delivery, I then said, let us invite our storyteller into our midst so as to tell us what philosophy is all about. So I changed, into my costume, and I then told the story of, Ijapa, and how, the knowledge is recognized in Africa not to belong to anybody. That the man who claims to have so much knowledge is actually the most ignorant person. I also then supplemented with the story of Mungo Park. Everybody, and all the people who are criticizing, people who went to their camp, they were assessing them with my presentation. So they gave me Baba, because I dressed like this now. Of course, my name is Baba Nidi also, so it's fine. So everybody started calling me Baba, because of what I used in this. And everybody, was able to identify with it. What am I saying? Until and unless we dig more into our indigenous content, we are not there at all. And the people in the university, we have more responsibility in this because the content are there, we are not putting them together. So the programs that we need to put together, we are not doing so. This is the age of science and technology that we can also leverage upon. I started making some video of children rhymes again recent times because I say you will hear all these rhymes and all that. These are not things that are meaningful. But can we leverage on AI and all that? So I put something together also about Bimoni, Adaba, and things like that. So finally, I'm going to say that we have huge responsibilities on our part. How do we collate some of these things and convince ourselves that this is the right way to go? One anecdote, because I will never forget this. If you are not immersed in your culture, sooner or later you are going to get disgrace. When I was a visiting fellow at Center for Teaching and Learning in Canada, towards the end of my trip, my director said, Kola, what are you doing this weekend? I said, nothing. Don't have relatives in Canada. So why don't you just hire a car and drive into US? Windsor was just at the other side of Detroit. Because Detroit separated into Canada. So we took a car and went to Detroit. We went to Institute of the Art. People who know me know that I love art, I love museum. If I visit a city, if I've not visited the museum or I've not visited that. So we went to the Institute of the Art in Detroit. The hall, one of the halls of the gallery we went to, then when we got to the African gallery, masquerades, and we do a lot of traditional African things. Started asking me questions about them. No matter what I could have told her about philosophy, pedagogy, if I couldn't tell her about that, I would have looked so stupid. But luckily, we also follow masquerade when we were young. You know, of course, later in the day, we miss the game, we get beaten. But tomorrow, we still again follow the masquerade. So I knew about traditional culture and all that. And so I was able to educate her what, those masquerade meant, what they were used for, and the costume and all that. Most of those beautiful costumes have been taken over by them, and people have to now go to those galleries to pay to look at it. But I know if we put those things here, people will say, no, there are things like that. So we need to, and the following Monday, the director has spread the news, told me so much about African culture, he knows so much and so on. So, what if it had gone the other way? And so when I asked questions about it, couldn't tell me anything. So let us immerse ourselves in our culture, and let us also research into them and document so that they can be integrated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Culture is life. Culture is education. Both they are like servants things. So, Ma, it's your turn.
Education as adopted or as given to us. I believe that some people put them together. Many of them are not able to. The first one is the philosophy, development of an individual. And what is indigenous knowledge about? It has to do with holistic development of an individual. For your family, for yourself, for your family, and for your society. And it is there written. It is how you interpret it. Holistic, it's there, development of an individual. But in indigenous African concept, it is holistic development of an individual. What I mean that the intellectual is not compartmentalized from the social, and not from the emotional, and not from the spirituality. All these are embedded. So indigenous knowledge offers comprehensive content to develop the child. Montessori has his principles, Frober, head, hand, and heart, Pestalozzi, head, heart, and heart. Frober has his own, the use of objects, and so on and so forth. But our problem is we run after those. We don't involve our own. When I attend workshops like this and government called meetings like that, and they are saying, today, it is going to be Reggio Emilia. We are following Reggio Emilia. Tomorrow, it is Montessori. Next tomorrow, I said, when are we going to evolve your own? Based on the African knowledge, based on your indigenous knowledge. And if you examine all these philosophies, all these approaches to learning, you will see that they are already embedded in what we have. Intellectual knowledge, NEB, they will practicalize it and send you around. That's your physical development. Lọ mú nǹkan báyìí wá, lọ mú iye nǹkan báyìí wá. Then they will inculcate into it the moral aspect of it. Ayára bí àṣà. And if you lack in any of these developmental aspects, o lẹ́kọ̀ọ́, if you are lacking in social development, oh, lẹ́kọ̀ọ́. If you cannot count, oh, lẹ́kọ̀ọ́ kò ní language méjì. If you are not spiritual, if you are immoral, oh, lẹ́kọ̀ọ́ ni. Gbogbo ẹ̀ revolve round, oh, lẹ́kọ̀ọ́. And when you acquire these skills, intellectually, socially, emotionally, spiritually, ọmọ tó lẹ́kọ̀ọ́, ọmọlúwàbí. So our indigenous education is comprehensive and holistic. And we can bring that to bear on the curriculum. We can ensure that whatever exposure we are giving to our children, particularly at this young age, should be comprehensive and holistic. We should not concentrate on just one aspect of the developmental domains. Not only that, look at our pedagogy. Our approaches. How do we make our children to learn in indigenous education? Participatory, hands-on, hand-on. Are these not all what this Montessori and Propel and are they not what they are talking about? But when you see an African mother picking the beans, you see the small girl picking the beans along with the child. When the mother is washing, the mother will give the pants or the singlet to the child. It's not participatory. The father will learn so many things. The boy child will learn from the man. Participatory, involvement, engagement. When they tell stories, is this only moral stories? But I said, hope is not lost. When they we carried out a study in 6 African countries, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, Nigeria, I can't remember the other 3. We wanted to bring indigenous knowledge back to the curriculum. We went to all these places. We discovered that there are some African indigenous knowledge that are national or international among these African countries. It's global. It's universal. It's not restricted to Nigeria alone. So it encouraged us, and we started working on it. But when we came back to Nigeria, all the others embraced it. When we came back to Nigeria, Nigerian government, anyhow this, told us we already have our curriculum. Are you introducing another thing? This was a project sponsored by UNESCO. We worked, ICBA anchored it. So when they got to Nigeria, they said, we already have our curriculum. It's already overloaded in this. Okay, we said, okay. UNESCO tried, UNICEF tried, they did not, but I said, don't worry. They now brought their Reggio Emilia. I said, okay. I sat down. I said, how can I influence this? I said, okay, I'm going to target the pedagogy. So when it came to the pedagogy, I raised up my hand. I said, Reggio Emilia brought its concept, and they were asking for the booklet we used, and we're going to produce it. That's about pedagogy. What about the materials? She has talked a lot about the materials. They are available. You don't have to stress before you get your hands. Ask children to bring them. They will. In your classrooms, are they reflecting? Instead of putting Michael Jackson for dance step, you put somebody from Bata. Is Bata not a dance step? If your gong, your drum, are they not? But let the symbols be around you. Let the children be aware of this around them. Let them add values. It's what you call whatever you have. Money, Baba, Bioni Baba, she take back. But AIKRN, you come out there, but when you put value on your culture, on your materials, on your, instead of looking for tabletop, counter, table,
look for seed, animal seed, fruit seeds. Ayo, we want to teach concept of numbers. For base 2, base 4, you use ayo, olopon. So, materials are readily available. And when children are engaged in using this with their hands, they think. I told you the story of asking my grandchildren to speak my dialect. They inquired from their mother. Their mother did not know, inquired from another person. So, inquisitiveness is the nature of children. Set this up in them, and you will learn even better than what you are. Until we start putting if we are not interested ourselves, we are not going anywhere. So that's why there is need for training, development of educators. Those who are handling these children. Parents, I agree with you, parents are not there. Do they have the knowledge? Do they even know? Can they say 10 proverbs? Can they interpret riddles themselves? That's why we need to train educators that we train these our children. This indigenous knowledge. And let them know that there are values. What Mutensore is got, Mutensore died long time ago. But our concept is still reigning because because of continuity. Let us, all these hands-on my son by high scope. It is in our indigenous knowledge. It is in our indigenous practice. Because they put their own down. Because they tell people about it. Because they train people in it. You will spend your money, your naira to go and learn Montessori or buy the equipment. Before you can improvise, you will first of all buy and study it. Or somebody will teach you about it. Why don't you have our own concepts of our own principles, of our own ideas based on our indigenous knowledge? Thank you.
Thank you very much. You know, so many things are coming out. Culture, it's making them to lose their identity. So that's one of the things that generated this program, that we want to connect education back to culture, to have.
I know some things have been said also, but you see, these days we talk about literary and debating society, and by the time you look at the content of the topic that they are introducing to students to talk about, they are foreign concepts. You know, concepts they do not find relatable. You know, I was recently trying to collect data for a study, and one of the teachers told me and said, see, there are some concepts in our curriculum that they are not our living realities. And she gave me an example of a tornado tsunami, you know, because it was on environmental education. I said, these are not issues with us, and into it, they are not issues with them. So she's like, even when I want to speak to them, you know, describe these concepts to our students, because it's not what they see, it's not what they have experienced, it's always difficult for them to construct knowledge. And we know as educators, for some of us that are educators, we talk about constructive, you know, when you construct and deconstruct. You know, you can only build on student experiences. When students' experiences are not built on, learning cannot actually take place. So it's very important that we introduce concepts that students will find relatable, what they have experienced, and what, you know, they will still eventually come across. Another thing I would like to say, which is a little bit different from what has been said, is the place of value. And value in this context is, see, if it's valuable, you put your money. Can we just ask ourselves, Many of the issues that borders on indigenous education funding in Africa, who are the people funding it? 99, I can tell you for a fact, as we are seated there, this is not even an initiative of, as it were. So let me not go into all of those details. When you listen to issues of UNESCO, even though we are a member body, you just mentioned, she just spoke to us about the university from the UK funding something in Africa. What happens to when you call government, our own people, to come and put money on these issues? You will not find it. They will tell you there is no money. And let me tell you, you cannot value what you are not spending on. You cannot value what you are not spending on. Money, yes, sir. They didn't put their money, so why would they want to invest in it? So we need to, come to a point where, I don't know how we are going to do this, because you see, the issue of Nigeria is a very complicated issue, where our government, until we as a people begin to value this approach of knowledge system, indigenous knowledge system, we value it as parents, at the home front is valued, at our institutions it is valued, at the government level it is valued. That is when we can begin, to get value for it. And I need to let us know that many of these issues we are even talking about, many of them, they are hosted in other nations' libraries. You talk all of this talk, all of this communicate that will come out from a meeting like this. Many of them, you get to foreign libraries, that's where you find them. Because, of course, I funded the research, I funded the program, you have to give me, a report. And that is how it is. Come to Nigeria, come to our library, talk about issues like this, you may eventually not be able to access some of this information. So, because we are not putting our money. So, yeah, I don't know how that is going to be done, but there is need for us to value it ourselves. If we claim to value it, then we must be willing to put our money. The next thing I would like to say, it's about the present type of education that we are running. Just like Prof said, and like it's been established, that philosophy is Western-centric. It's the reason why we are producing, it's like we are producing manpower for the Western world. It's the reason why they can easily fit in. Now, in the past, before the advent of the colonial masters, I know of the apprenticeship system. The apprenticeship system of training is that there is no child without a skill. And if that skill is not learned in the family, there is another family where that skill is being learned. So you put him or her from láti kékeré, let's máa fi síbẹ̀, bọ́n ṣe ń pẹja, bọ́n ṣe ń tó wá ṣe alágbẹ̀dẹ ló fẹ́ ṣe, so he or she will grow, with that knowledge. The person will learn the trick and the trade, learn all the nitty-gritty, and before you know it, they become established professionals in their own rights. And that is why they are not jobless at the time. But now, what do we have? We have unemployment, because the type of education we are providing is not a focused type of education where, children are prepared from the cradle. They do not evolve into what they want to become. People they are just loafers here and there, just try, I teach a little, I do this a little, then before you know it, people are just not into a profession. They do not profess anything, as it were. Lastly, that I would like to talk about is still the place of communication, language. See, research has shown when you teach people in their local language, if you teach science, let me tell you one of the reasons why science appears to be a little bit abstract and difficult in Africa is because the language of science in Africa is not the language of Africa. We saw what those children were doing when we were showed the video clip the other time. When you listen to what they are using to talk to them, they are talking to them in Chinese. And all of the things they prepared were things they sourced from their environment. When we learn to do things, of course, maybe just as a form of, if I can divert a little, ChatGPT. There is another one now that has been said to be bigger and better, DeepSeek. It's owned by Chinese. It's been projected that Chinese will eventually catch up with the Western countries and eventually maybe even surpass them. Because they learn in their local language. So if we do not pay adequate attention to this, we are just not ready for anything called development. Earlier we try to adapt and begin to focus our mind on, placing premium on our indigenous languages, the better for our educational system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can I just say, I saw something interesting this morning. You know how when you have children who cannot walk? I saw it, I've never seen it before. It's an Igbo practice, apparently. If a child has delay in walking, they dig a hole in soft sand and they put the child inside that soft sand. I mean, our practices are amazing. So instead of using the Oyibo walker, so they dug a hole. In fact, I want to go and dig the hole behind my school. They dug a hole in soft sand. They put the baby, the girl, inside that sand. They got her friends to be, so that she would not be bored, to be singing for her and be dancing for her. So I dug deeper to find out that what is the point. And the person said, if a child cannot stand, the child cannot walk. So in other words, that sand pit that they put the baby in will firm her standing. So again, there's another one. Yeah, a child that is not walking, dig sand. We have our I was at Ibadan some times ago. I went to supervise the teaching practice, and I saw water at the back of the school building. Any child with Timothy, anything to buy my pomolara, and I screamed, mommy, let me school. Kisha won't be. Only boy won't borrow. You know, things like that. If we are not digging them out, we will lose touch. Yes, Daddy.
All these things, they're sounding but it's just that we have not attuned our minds to these things. I mean, I've taught engineering in the last 40 years, and I can say for sure that I started teaching artificial intelligence in this university. I was the first person to expert, and I taught it for 30 years in Akis. And I have always taught artificial intelligence with IU. And all my students, they understand it because it's something that they know. And in various parts of the world, 2 games that they say are the top games for teaching artificial intelligence: chess and Go. Both of them, you first of all need to subject them to a form in which the computer can be used to teach them. Because they are games that involve movement in space. IU is a game of number. You don't need to convince the computer that there are 4 seeds in this hole. If you pick it, you drop one. Not advanced. It takes about a week to get the student to create their own IU. Today, by the second day, the average student that comes to me, by the second day, he has created his own IU board and it works. Then for the next 1 week, he's trying to find out how to teach the computer to pick the right holes to be able to beat the opponent. And all that, there's nothing in computer science that cannot be taught with IU. Is it data structure? Is it linked list? Is it even statistics and probability? That if you pick this hole rather than this, what's the probability that it will win? All that. I teach all of that with that simple IU. So these are things that are ours. And when the young people come to me now, I have like 3, 4, 5 boards in my office. Let's go and play IU for the first day. And then come and implement it on the computer.
Thank you very much, sir. Let's put our hands together for him. You know, torí pa àmọ̀yì nǹkan tá a ní, òun la ṣe ń sọnù.
àmọ́ yìí àdẹ̀tí rí pé ara oko ló máa ń ṣàwọn kankan pé kò dẹ̀ sẹ́ni tó fẹ́ kọ́ pé òun lára oko. When I carried out my research, it was the parents of the children in public schools that came to attack us. Then Professor Oloriyomi was my internal external. He said because they've seen English language as a language of success. That gbogbo yín lẹ wà ń bí òyìnbó lẹ ń sọ òun láyé yín ṣe dáa. Ẹ̀yin wá fẹ́ kọ́ ọmọ tí wàá máa sọ Yorùbá kọ́ lè ṣerú ẹgbẹ́ wọn. So, you know, it still boils down here. So, ma, you are a practitioner, you are in the classroom. Just one word that now you are going back because our target is even you people. Just one word from you, ma. Thank you, ma. Thank you, sir. Concerning what we are doing and what we are supposed to be doing is that, like every Wednesday in our school, we used to do cultural and debating in the assembly. After we have finished the assembly, we are going to arrange the chairs and the pulpits to talk. They will talk about teacher is better than doctor or farmer is better than teacher. And when they are talking, we'll be listening to them. Then, most of the time, what I will do differently is now, when I get to my school tomorrow now, I will tell them in the assembly that I've went to one place, so, this is what we have been learning and what we are going to inculcate to you. Like Yoruba, in English, we used to use New Wave English. That New Wave English speak about speech sounds, grammar, teaching of keywords, everything. But in Yoruba that we are using, that is autonomous Yoruba. It's just only for reading and answering the question. There is no grammar or anything there. When I get there now, I will tell them that this is how we are going to be doing it, so that people will come. Thank you very much, because we want you to do the doing, to read the Yoruba. Yes, they could not read what I gave to them. I have to read for them before they could answer. That was what prompted me to produce books for children in early years. And some proprietors told me that I want them to lose enrollment. Yes, I produced books from the work Mama survived. Pictures. On B, on 4 pictures. The books are there. I even sold my car to publish it, and they said I want my lose patronage. That one introduce a school. Sir, you are representing the government, not even the federal government now, the state government. You are the son of the soil. Yeah.
I actually wanted to speak on strategies for incorporating indigenous knowledge into. So I want to mention community involvement and participation. Gẹ́gẹ́ bí àpẹẹrẹ tí olùkọ́ tó ń kọ́ Yorùbá ẹ̀kọ́ Yorùbá tó bá fẹ́ kọ́ ẹ̀kọ́ ìlù lílù, kò sí nǹkan tó ní kó má mú ẹni tó lùlù ní ìta kó mú wá síbẹ̀ kó wá lù fún wọn, kó sọ gbogbo àwọn nǹkan tó wà lára àlù yẹn fún wọn. This can be done for other professions too. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Exactly, ó sọ̀rọ̀ sókè. Ẹni kí wọ́n lọ mú ẹni tí ó lù kí wọ́n gbà ká ló sàn.
I know there are aspects. See, these things are done in schools. It depends on the commitment of the head teacher or the principal.
Ẹ jẹ́ ìjọba sọ kankan. Excuse me.
Wọ́n ń gbowó lọ́wọ́ àwọn ilé ìwé.
Looking for resource persons within the environment. Parents are willing, They are interested in the education of their children. In fact, it depends on the rapport between the school and the community. That's why if you look at indigenous knowledge and education, it has to do with people, it has to do with the society, it has to do with the environment and connectivity. It takes a village to raise a child. If that parents or whatever craft, they will be more than willing to come and be of service to the school. But because of the mentality of now, particularly if it is a private school, they say, but before it gets to that stage, in fact, the children will be happy that their own person is coming around. So we should not limit the connecting the school with the community to only social events. When we want to collect money from them, or when we want to come and contribute to the development of the school, if we make them part and parcel of the school system, they will be more than willing. That's why the PTA is there. They can recognize those people, then the teachers, the classroom teachers. And if you come to the classroom and you see a symbol of your art in the classroom of your child, so we have not lost our value totally. There are some people that are still interested in ensuring that our children imbibe their culture.
Thank you very much. We have started it in University of Ibadan Star School. So we have, we have a day now we call it traditional day, where we allow every culture there, to demonstrate, to display the culture. And we have started it. So every May in UI Star School, we have started that, and it is really yielding something. And another one is the co-curricular activity. Then we have the Cub Scout or this thing, but I make sure that there's no backlog. And we started with the age 5 children, so that we should catch them by young and catch them. So we have started that, and it is really yielding something. You will see that when they see me coming now, any teacher, even on the road, they will kneel down, my boys will prostrate. So all those culture, it's now, they are making.
Thank you very much. You have done well, but we want you to go beyond that, because we find out that most times our culture is for entertainment. Yeah, our culture is for entertainment, and you should go beyond that. Yes, everyday affair. Then when you are teaching in the classroom, there are some concepts that you can bring in indigenous knowledge. There are some things, and it helps holistic learning to take place. So, we appreciate you that you have even started, but you should go beyond that. I'm coming back to you, sir. Just my. Yes, sir.
February 21.
Yes, sir.
Is International Language Month.
Okay, sir.
And modern language. So UNESCO. Now that's one. Then I want to give you an assignment. Curriculum. Please, I want you to venture to. For me. Now.
There's a song we love to sing for Kori. Kori is believed to be deities of children. Kori koto mapaya wale kurisha ewe mapaya wale kori koto majebe awa o kurisha ewe majebe awa o fu.
Now we need to investigate that story and put it as part of our curriculum. So then, if anybody is doing any research in linguistics
you are bringing in.
Just bear with us.
This is a challenge I just want to throw. Many of us are already trying to do some little things at our different places. Let us begin to brand what we do. I appreciate what Mrs. Ige is doing. I would love to visit your school one of these days and have a chat with you. I think you should begin to brand your school with indigenous knowledge, not just what you are doing is not just Montessori. Brand it and create your own brand that other people can begin to copy. So, yes. So they started like that. So, and you have gone beyond, the initial knowledge you took from them. So, in our different places too. For instance, there's a course I teach, social and cultural context of education for master students. For several years now, we have a cultural day. We go on excursion. The cultural day is becoming a university affair now. And the students direct it, they coordinate it, they fund it, and so it's beginning to make that impact. So let's begin to also create and be proud of the little effort we are making in different ways. Little by little, all those things will become concrete things that we can begin to showcase. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, individual efforts.
Many things have been said. We can all agree and we are sure that indigenous knowledge is holistic and comprehensive in its content already. And what actually left is how are we going to put it into our own philosophy of education or into our curriculum. While as individuals or as school owners or as teachers or as stakeholders in education, while we are even trying our own little ways in inculcating this into our everyday activities, I think we still have to, I know that this kind of thing will get to the government. I don't know if we can get to the government because I believe that the reason why we are sitting down here and talking about this thing is because we want a change. I think we should start addressing the stereotype. We stereotype our language, our way of life, and so many things that we do, and we look at them locally. If I live in Manhattan, New York is my local area, and I can be local in New York. So the same way I'm local in Ibadan, I can be local in New York. So we shouldn't look at the word locality as a negative word. Then I think the government of this country needs to do a lot. We have something called NOA, National Orientation Agency. They shouldn't be talking about elections alone and things like that. They should be talking about how we are going to return pride into ourselves, how we are going to identify ourselves as a person, as a people. Not when the election is coming or every other thing. Government should do that. We've talked about how government should develop curriculum. And when they want to develop the curriculum, they should put people who are very knowledgeable. Thank you very much.
Okay, we want to appreciate everyone of us.
The initiative of today is very important and very commendable. There have been some effort in the past, but I think along the line people drop those initiatives. It is good that it's been picked up again, and my advice to them is not to be deterred, to follow up on the suggestions of today and then begin to get more effort into it, tap into more expertise so that at the end of the day we can actually come out with concrete, achievable program that can advance indigenous knowledge at various levels of education.
Yeah, I'm Taiwo Ayofeoluwa. I see that if we are not immersed in our culture, sooner or later we'll be disgraced. And one of the leverage points is that our language, we should inculcate our language, our national language, at home. Parents should start teaching their local languages to their children, because the only thing that distinguishes us, one of the things that differentiates us from animals, humans from animals, is the language. And if this language is not being taught at home, the children may not really find their culture something worthwhile to embrace. Thank you.
My name is Grace Obile. Okay, so I learned that there's a need for us to incorporate our indigenous African knowledge into our various system, especially the educational system. So we actually learned about the fact that there's a need for us to incorporate African knowledge into the preschool, into secondary school, into primary school. So it's not a bad thing to be westernizing education, but there's a need for us to really come into our culture, our heritage. There's a need for us to uphold it and upheld it for preservation, because we see that so many people many of these values and the practices are going into extinction because it's not well being preserved and passed from one generation to the other. So this platform has actually encouraged us that there's a need for us to own our thing, and we need to really be comprehensive about it. There's a need for research, there's a need for us documentation, there's a need for us talking about it, showing coming up with these programs like these, conferences, seminars, and also school owners should also incorporate these African practices into their curriculum, because one of the things I actually learned here today is about the curriculum-based approach, and it should be more Africanized, more it should be our thing, like basically. So it also starts with us owning up to these things, because we don't really talk about it. We feel okay, it's African, and also there's a need for us to keep talking about it, ensuring that school owners also, like I said, put it into their curriculum-based practices, and it should not be just a yearly thing. It should be something that we do daily. Yes, daily.
My name is Sulaiman Mikai. Yeah, well, for my hand, I got some psychic emancipation from this program. I now understand that we can do great things from a small place. I now also understand that we should even think globally and act. I mean, we should think locally and act globally. Thank you.
Okay, yes. Majorly, this program for today was centered about like curriculum-based, the school and all of that. But there was one thing a particular panelist said, which was bridging the gap between the home and the school. That as much as we want to push out things in school, there is still a place that the home has to play in whatever the school intends to push out to these children. And just makes me to understand that even if they are trying to inculcate these indigenous things in schools for them, children spend a lot of time in their home, way more than they even spend in school. And if they don't have this homework to take back at home and inculcate and learn about these indigenous things, it will basically be bringing down the effort of the teachers and all of the things that are embedded in the curriculum. And also the second thing again that I got to understand is the fact that anybody who intends to be in the school, teaching, whatever space, has to be creative. You have to develop a creative mind. If you are not creative, you would find it difficult to be able to build things that would relate to these children's immediate environment from indigenous materials. So as teachers and people who impart knowledge on children and students in general, you should develop in yourself the creative mindset to be able to put these things that are indigenous materials together to be something that these children can also look up to in their immediate space. Thank you.
Thank you. We're glad having you.